Chapter 99. As for the bait, don't we have it now? Ching Kong's eyes started to size up the Green Alliance disciples who were standing not too far away. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. Since these guys have chosen to join the Green Alliance, it's time for them to contribute. Ching Kong looked at the disciples of the Green Alliance as if he was looking at slaves. His plan was to let the Green Alliance disciples lure the demonic beast so that they could take the rich lush monument from the cave. Hearing Ching Kong's words, Chu Bei gave him a few more looks. "Oh, Lord Ching, you're so young, but you're so decisive." Ching Kong praised him. As a leader, it was necessary to kill decisively. For the sake of benefits, it was not undesirable to sacrifice some people. Since young Master Ching has spoken, then this Chu will respectfully accept. Chu Bei sneered. His figure suddenly rushed into the crowd of Green Alliance warriors. He grabbed 5 or 6 of them and bound them with spiritual energy. Then, he threw them into the cave. "What are you doing? We didn't join the Green Alliance to die. You want us to be bait to lure the demonic beast?" Many of the Green Alliance martial artists' faces changed drastically. They tried to use their energy to resist. But the Divine Sea Realm and the Body Refining Realm were 2 different realms. Under Chu Bei's power, the Green Alliance disciples who tried to resist were easily suppressed. Since you've chosen to join the Green Alliance, you're all members of the Green Alliance. I'm the one who decides whether you live or die. Anyone who dares to resist will die. Ching Kong's eyes were filled with ruthlessness. "Uncle Mo, look after these guys. Kill anyone who dares to resist." "Yes." Uncle Mo snorted coldly as he stared at the Green Alliance disciples. Seeing the spiritual energy erupting from Uncle Mo, the Green Alliance disciples couldn't resist even if they wanted to. These Green Alliance disciples thought that they would be protected by the Green Alliance. They didn't expect that they would have to pay with their lives. Chu Fengmian was indifferent to all of this. Since these Green Alliance disciples had wanted to join the Green Alliance of their own volition, this outcome could not be blamed on anyone else. Chu Fengmian's eyes were fixed on Chu Bei. It threw a martial artist into one of the caves. In an instant the ground shook and the mountains shook. What followed was an earth-shattering sound. A huge body, which seemed to be dozens of meters long, suddenly appeared in the cave. Looking at the warrior at the entrance of the cave, a huge mouth opened. Amidst a miserable shriek, the warrior was devoured by this huge demonic beast in a single gulp. All of this happened in an instant. The demonic beast had once again returned to the mountain cave. It's a dragon turtle, and an ancient dragon turtle's bloodline. Although the demonic beast had only appeared for a moment, Chu Fengmian was still able to tell what kind of beast it was. It was an ancient dragon turtle, with strength at the peak of the Wind Rider realm. The Dragon Turtle clan was one of the most terrifying clans among the countless demonic beasts. This kind of dragon turtle possessed the bloodline of a true dragon, and its strength was much more terrifying than many Jiao dragons. That was especially true of the one in front of him. It was covered in dragon scales, and clearly had the blood of true dragons in its veins. This ancient dragon turtle was incredibly strong, and with the blood of true dragons in its veins, no one in the same level as it could do anything to it. According to the legends, Grand Emperor Richlush's mount had been an enormous dragon turtle. Now, it seemed that it was this ancient dragon turtle. Grand Emperor Richlush had long since perished in the river of time. But this ancient dragon turtle had lived on, and was now guarding the Richlush steel. Chu Fengmian wasn't the only one to realize this. Chu Bei was the same. "This must be the ancient dragon turtle that Grand Emperor Richlush rode on," Chu Bei said. "I never would have guessed that it's actually guarding the Richlush steel. That said, it's true that ancient dragon turtles are delicious. As long as we use the flesh and blood of martial artists to lure it out, it should be enough to lure it out," Chu Bei said in a low voice. Beside him, the other Green Alliance martial artists were already trembling in fear. They had watched with their own eyes as the ancient dragon turtle swallowed the Green Alliance martial artist whole. When they thought about what would happen to them, their faces turned pale. "Senior, could you spare my life? If you could spare me, I'd be willing to be your slave for the rest of my life to repay your kindness," one of the martial artists asked Chu Bei in a trembling voice. But Chu Bei's expression was as calm as ever, and a disdainful smile appeared on his face. "Slave for the rest of your life? You don't qualify for that. Just die obediently in the mouth of this ancient dragon turtle. If you can contribute to the prosperity of our Qing clan and family Chu clan, then you won't have lived in vain." Chu Bei laughed loudly, then grabbed the martial artist and threw him into the cave. Once again, the martial artist was thrown toward the entrance of the cave. Similar to the previous time, when the ancient martial art practitioner had just thrown it to the entrance of the cave, the huge ancient dragon turtle suddenly leaped out of the cave. It bit down on the warrior's body. This time, Chu Bei didn't choose to retreat. Instead, he grabbed another martial artist and threw him even further away. One martial artist after another was caught by Chu Bei and thrown into the ancient dragon turtle's mouth. At this time, the ancient dragon turtle was already farther and farther away from the cave. After using a few techniques, it had already pulled some distance away. "It's about time." Chu Bei and Uncle Mo looked at each other and understood each other's thoughts. With the two of them working together, they bound all the Green Alliance warriors and threw them towards the primordial dragon turtle. The primordial dragon turtle was still immersed in the pleasure of devouring the martialist's flesh and blood. Chu Bei and Uncle Mo moved at the same time and rushed toward the cave. "It's time." Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered, and his body moved abruptly. He charged into the cave and suddenly leaped out. He had been waiting on the side for this opportunity. Chu Fengmian didn't have any good methods to deal with the ancient dragon turtle. Chapter 100. Hurry up. Those Green Alliance cultivators won't be enough for the archaic dragon turtle. We have to get the richly lush monument and escape. Chu Bei said hurriedly. Although the two of them were only in the Divine Sea realm, they were nothing compared to the archaic dragon turtle, which was at the peak of the Imperial Wind realm. They would still be eaten by the archaic dragon turtle. "Don't worry. 1 minute is more than enough." Uncle Mo laughed loudly. If they could get the richly lush monument, it would be a great achievement for the two of them. When they returned to their respective clans, they would be rewarded immensely. When the two of them reached the depths of the cave, they saw a stone monument the size of a person. There were countless formations engraved on the monument. Many of these formations had lost their effectiveness due to the lack of spiritual energy. However, the immense amount of spiritual energy on the monument still shocked the two of them. So this is the richly lush monument. Such terrifying power. No wonder it was once a terrifying existence in the divine power realm, the spiritual artifact of the Grand Emperor of Rich Lush. Chu Bei's eyes flashed with greed as he spoke. However, the greed only lasted for a moment before disappearing. The Rich Lush monument wasn't something he could take by himself. He had to hand it over to his clan. "Stop sighing. When the archaic dragon turtle returns, you and I will be in trouble. Hurry up and take the Rich Lush monument and leave." Uncle Mo was clearly much calmer. After saying that, he walked towards the Rich Lush monument. Just as he was about to approach the richly lush monument, it suddenly vanished without a trace. When they saw the monument disappear, the two of them were stunned. Then, they looked around frantically. The Rich Lush monument couldn't have disappeared without a trace. There was only one possibility. There was a third person in the cave. "Who is it?" Uncle Mo suddenly roared. A gust of spiritual energy burst out from his body, forming a whirlwind that swept across the entire cave. The cave was not spacious at all. The whirlwind immediately filled the entire cave. "I've been discovered." Chu Fengmian calmed down. He had quietly entered the cave and hidden himself so that Chu Bei and Uncle Mo wouldn't be able to detect him. However, the cave was still too small. There was no place for Chu Fengmian to hide. But since he couldn't hide, he might as well come out and fight. Chu Fengmian's figure suddenly appeared as he looked at the whirlwind. Chu Fengmian held the abundant lush tombstone in his left hand while the profound azure sword appeared in his right. Numerous sword lights flashed in front of him, and the whirlwind was easily sliced apart. Uncle Mo shouted when he saw Chu Fengmian holding the richly lush tombstone. "Kid, hand over the richly lush steel, and I'll spare your life." "Spare my life? You dare to be so arrogant?" Chu Fengmian sneered. "Didn't the two of you want to kill me for a long time? Today, I'm standing right in front of you. I'd like to see just how you'll accomplish this. Chu? Are you Chu Fengmian?" Hearing Chu Fengmian's address, Chu Bei's expression suddenly changed. Then, he looked at Chu Fengmian and suddenly laughed. "Kid, I haven't come looking for you yet. I didn't expect you to come looking for death. Very well. Today I'll kill you first. Then, I'll take the richly lush tombstone from you." An innate earth spirit suddenly appeared on Chu Bei's body. Chu Bei's body was also covered in a thick layer of spiritual power armor. Family Chu was a body-tempering family. All of the family Chu's disciples cultivated body-tempering technique. Chu Bei was no exception, especially since he had reached the Divine Sea realm. He was able to condense the innate earth spirit and use it on himself. This level of strength was many times stronger than Chu Bei Ji's. "Chu Fengmian, you should feel honored to die at the hands of a Divine Sea realm warrior." Chu Bei laughed loudly and clenched his fists. His feet moved, and in a single step, he arrived in front of Chu Fengmian. He punched at Chu Fengmian with both fists. As a Divine Sea realm warrior, he was sure to win against a body-tempering realm warrior. Moreover, Chu Bei's punch contained all of his strength. He wanted to kill Chu Fengmian with one blow. He absolutely did not believe that there was any martial practitioner in the body-refining realm who could withstand a punch from him. Chu Bei could already imagine Chu Fengmian being killed by his punch. The smug smile on his face froze in the next moment. Because his punch was easily blocked by Chu Fengmian's sword. Chu Fengmian's sword blocked his punch, and all the power of his punch was easily neutralized. How is this possible? Even if your spiritual weapon could withstand this punch, the rebounding force would be enough to break his arm. Seeing Chu Fengmian easily blocked his punch, Chu Bei's expression changed. He was in disbelief. How can a body-tempering realm warrior compete with a Divine Sea realm warrior? Die! Chu Bei roared again and threw another punch. But this time, Chu Fengmian didn't just block it. Chu Fengmian's sword moved again. Almost the same thing happened again. Chu Fengmian's sword blocked Chu Bei's punch perfectly. At the same time, Chu Fengmian clenched his left fist and punched at Chu Bei. Bang! This punch hit Chu Bei's chest. Chu Bei was forced to retreat dozens of steps. The layer of armor condensed by spiritual power on his body was shattered by Chu Fengmian's punch. This armor could even withstand a Divine Sea realm warrior's attack for a while, but it was shattered by Chu Fengmian's punch. This caused Chu Bei to have some doubts in his heart. Who was the Divine Sea realm warrior? Why was Chu Fengmian suppressing him and gaining the upper hand? Whoosh! Just as Chu Bei was forced to retreat, a gust of wind suddenly appeared behind Chu Fengmian. This gust of wind was not normal. It suddenly condensed into a dagger behind Chu Fengmian's back. It stabbed at Chu Fengmian's back. Innate wind spirit. This innate wind spirit had silently approached Chu Fengmian's back and turned into a dagger, ready to sneak attack Chu Fengmian. Sneak attack? You'd better learn how to control your breath. Chu Fengmian glanced and suddenly punched to the right. Bang! A sound was heard. A figure was suddenly blasted out by spiritual power. Just now, when Chu Fengmian and Chu Bei were fighting, Uncle Mo had quietly hidden himself. He intended to sneak attack Chu Fengmian. But how could this kind of aura-concealing technique escape Chu Fengmian's eyes? Chapter 101. Although Chu Fengmian didn't have any spiritual power in his previous life, His sword intent had reached the peak of perfection. The peak of sword intent could not only strengthen the blade, but could also see through heaven's secrets. Although Chu Fengmian hadn't reached that level yet, a sneak attack like this wouldn't work on Chu Fengmian. The two of you can go die now. Chu Fengmian looked at Chu Bei and Uncle Mo with killing intent in his eyes. This mountain cave could belong to the ancient dragon turtle. Chu Fengmian had to finish off these two people before the ancient dragon turtle returned. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian would be in trouble when the ancient dragon turtle returned. Kill us? Do you think you can be so arrogant with your strength? Chu Bei looked at Chu Fengmian with a cold expression. A body refining realm martial artist actually threatened to kill two divine sea realm martial artists. No matter who heard this, it would be a joke. You don't believe me? Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold and he moved. Chu Fengmian's figure had already disappeared from the cave without making a sound. Be careful. This guy's body movement is very strange. Chu Bei yelled. Chu Bei's had suffered a loss at Chu Fengmian's hands before, so he knew that Chu Fengmian's body movement couldn't be underestimated. He was already fully prepared. The earth spirit armor on his body condensed once again. Unfortunately, these preparations were meaningless in front of Chu Fengmian. Boom! There was a loud noise. Uncle Mo hurriedly turned around. Chu Bei was lying flat on the ground. A punch had punched a big hole in Chu Bei's chest. Under the protection of the earth spirit armor, one punch was enough to break it and even kill Chu Bei with one punch. This time, Uncle Mo was completely stunned. Even a warrior at the 5th LV of the Spirit Sea realm might not have the confidence to break this layer of Earth Spirit armor with one punch. The Earth Spirit was the strongest power of the innate Earth. The defense of the Earth Spirit armor was the strongest among the innate 5 spirits. Furthermore, Chu Bei was a body cultivator, so his body was much tougher than an ordinary martialist. Even under such circumstances, he was still killed by Chu Fengmian with a single punch. You are a warrior of the Spirit Sea realm? Are you hiding your strength? Uncle Mo looked at Chu Fengmian and secretly hated those people from the Qing family. The people of the Qing family only told him that Chu Fengmian should be at the peak of the body refining realm. At best, he could not compete with the Spirit Sea realm. That was why he came to kill Chu Fengmian. But now, it seemed that Chu Fengmian was not at the peak of the body refining realm. A warrior at the 3rd LV of the Spirit Sea realm was killed by him with one punch. This level of strength was simply terrifying to the extreme. How could a kid who was only 20 years old have such terrifying strength? Just how terrifying was Chu Fengmian's aptitude to possess such terrifying power? It's your turn now. Chu Fengmian's eyes were fixed on Uncle Mo. His eyes were not like the eyes of a teenager at all. They were extremely deep, as if only those who had seen through the world of mortals could have such eyes. Young Master Chu, spare my life. I, Mo Wan, am willing to surrender to you. Mo Wan hurriedly said. Chu Fengmian's strength was enough to kill Chu Bei with one punch. Mo Wan's strength was not even as good as Chu Bei's, so there was no chance for him to resist. Spare your life. Chu Fengmian's eyes changed as he sneered. When Mo Wan wanted to kill Chu Fengmian, he did not think about sparing him. This time, Chu Fengmian would not spare him. In your dreams. Chu Fengmian coldly spat out 2 words. His figure moved again. A figure abruptly rushed towards Mo Wan and sent another punch flying towards him. Little bastard, I will die with you. Mo Wan roared and suddenly swallowed a pill. He knew that he was going to die, so he could only fight to the death. The pill entered his mouth. Mo Wan's body crazily swelled. His body was filled with endless power, as if it was going to break out of his body. 7 Ultimate Berserker Pill? Chu Fengmian muttered to himself when he saw Mo Wan's change. The 7 Ultimate Berserker Pill was a very special profound grade pill. Once taken, it could stimulate all the power in a warrior's body for a short period of time. However, it could only last for less than 5 minutes, and once the effect wore off, it would only last for about 5 minutes. Once the pill disappeared, the warrior who took it would have his spiritual veins broken, or die directly. It was definitely not a pill that should be taken only in a moment of life and death. This Mo1 was planning to make a final desperate gamble. Boy! Even if I die today, I will drag you to the grave with me. Mo1 burst into laughter and suddenly rushed toward Chu Fengmian. Punch after punch, he suddenly bombarded Chu Fengmian. Although the power of each punch was not strong, it forced Chu Fengmian to have no time to spare. In an instant, Chu Fengmian understood Mo1's idea. He was trying to stall for time. Stall for time until the ancient dragon turtle came back. If the ancient dragon turtle came back, Chu Fengmian and Mo1 would die in its hands. At that time, Chu Fengmian would really be dragged to the grave by Mo1. Damn it! Chu Fengmian's eyes showed some anger. Even if Mo1 died, he wanted to drag Chu Fengmian with him. Fight! Chu Fengmian roared. The bloodline of the ancient battle dragon in his body was fully activated. The power of the 3 drops of essence blood burst out at the same time. Bang! 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 Chu Fengmian punched Mo1 3 times in a row. Suddenly, countless bones in Mo1's body were broken by Chu Fengmian's punch. However, under the effect of the 7 ultimate berserker pill, Mo1, whose bones were broken, could still stand up. In these 5 minutes, Mo1 was almost immortal. Boy! No matter how strong you are, you won't be able to leave in these 5 minutes. Mo1 roared crazily. He no longer cared about his own life. The only thing he wanted now was to stall Chu Fengmian in the cave. When the ancient dragon turtle came back, he would let it kill Chu Fengmian. Roar! Outside the cave, a dragon roar sounded. It was the roar of the ancient dragon turtle. It seemed that the ancient dragon turtle had sensed that something was wrong in the cave and was ready to return. Die! Chapter 102. Under the impact of the punch, a large hole was smashed out of Mo1's chest. His heart was smashed to pieces by Chu Fengmian's punch. No matter how strong the 7-fold berserker pill was, Mo1's heart was smashed to pieces and he could not continue living. The moment Mo1 fell, the corner of his mouth curled into a strange smile. Soon, you'll be accompanying me. Mo1 laughed loudly. This was because he had already seen a huge figure blocking the entrance of the cave. The primordial dragon turtle had returned. The primordial dragon turtle had also noticed the commotion in the cave. It was in a good mood, but now it was irritated again. Roar! The primordial dragon turtle let out a long roar. The roar was full of dragon's roar and endless dragon's aura spread out. Ordinary martial artists, even divine sea realm martial artists, could only tremble under the dragon's roar. Dragon's aura was extremely terrifying. However, this dragon might was completely useless against Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian's bloodline was the bloodline of the primordial battle dragon. Even though Chu Fengmian's bloodline was impure now, he was still a primordial battle dragon. Although his bloodline was not pure, the primordial battle dragon was precious. Chu Fengmian's primordial battle dragon bloodline was of a higher grade than the dragon turtle in front of him. Naturally, he would not be affected by the dragon's aura. A dragon turtle at the peak of the Imperial Wind Realm. This is really terrifying. Chu Fengmian held the abundant lush monument in his hand and his mind was clear. He was now in such a dangerous situation because of the abundant lush monument. However, if Chu Fengmian had to choose, he would not regret it. Opportunities were always in danger. If Chu Fengmian was afraid of danger, why would he cultivate? Wouldn't it be safer to be a mansion master in a remote place like Martial Forest City? To become an expert, one should not be afraid of danger. Let's fight. This primordial dragon turtle is the strongest opponent I have ever met in my life. It's time to fight with all my strength. There was no fear in Chu Fengmian's eyes, only endless fighting spirit. Even if he were to die, he would die standing. In his previous life, Chu Fengmian had no power and didn't even have the chance to die in battle. In this life, Chu Fengmian had to die in battle. Dragon fights in the wild. In Chu Fengmian's body, the ancient battle dragon's bloodline was flowing wildly. Even if the primordial war dragon died, it would have died in battle. Now, in this life and death situation, the bloodline of the primordial war dragon resonated with Chu Fengmian's thoughts at the same time. Roar! The primordial dragon turtle looked at Chu Fengmian in astonishment. Why did he feel an extremely ancient and noble aura from Chu Fengmian's body? Brat, who are you? Why do you have the primogenitor's bloodline? The ancient dragon turtle suddenly spoke. That voice was extremely deep, and it sounded more like the voice of an old man. The primordial dragon turtle had spoken? Chu Fengmian was startled when he heard the primordial dragon turtle speak. It was rumored that when demonic beasts reached a certain level, they would be able to speak the human language. The intelligence of these demonic beasts was no different from that of a warrior. Learning the human language was naturally not a difficult task. For example, Qing Luan could speak the human language. However, Qing Luan was the leader of all birds after all. It was not strange for it to speak the human language. However, the primordial dragon turtle was only at the peak of the wind-resisting realm. Generally speaking, only those who had reached the divine power realm would be able to speak the human language. Brat, you have not answered my question. Why do you have the primogenitor's bloodline? Seeing that Chu Fengmian did not answer, the primordial dragon turtle spoke again. Primogenitor's bloodline. Chu Fengmian suddenly understood after hearing the primordial dragon turtle's words. The reason why the primordial dragon turtle did not attack was because it sensed the ancient battle dragon's bloodline in Chu Fengmian. The ancient battle dragon was actually the current primogenitor of the real dragon clan. The primordial dragon turtle had inherited the real dragon's bloodline. It could be said that the ancient battle dragon was indeed the primogenitor's existence to the primordial dragon turtle. It doesn't matter where my bloodline came from. Chu Fengmian's eyes flickered as he suddenly spoke. Primordial dragon turtle, do you want to break through the wind-resisting realm and step into the divine power realm? Oh? Step into the divine power realm? The primordial dragon turtle spoke as if it was laughing loudly. The divine power realm is a realm that all demonic beasts want to step into. Naturally, I want to do so too. Brat, do you think that you can help me break through to the divine power realm? The primordial dragon turtle's intelligence was not lower than a martial artist. He understood the meaning behind Chu Fengmian's words in an instant. His eyes were looking at Chu Fengmian with a faint smile. He was extremely curious about Chu Fengmian. The Chu Fengmian before him was obviously a human. However, he had the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon. The purity of the bloodline almost made him think that the Chu Fengmian before him was transformed from an ancient battle dragon. It was just that Chu Fengmian's bloodline was still a little thin. In addition, Chu Fengmian's strength was too weak. That was why he did not make a mistake. Now that Chu Fengmian suddenly spoke and said that he could help him break through to the divine power realm, the primordial dragon turtle was even more surprised. The divine power realm was not that easy to break through. Stepping into the divine power realm meant that one's spirit could connect with divinity. This was a completely different realm. It could be said to be a watershed. Compared to the divine power realm, no matter how strong the primordial dragon turtle was now, he was still a great demonic beast. However, once he broke through to the divine power realm, the primordial dragon turtle would be in existence like a demonic god. Their statuses were different. Even many countries would have to treat them with respect. There were countless demonic beasts that wanted to break through to the divine power realm. However, less than 1 in 100 were able to break through. As long as you submit to me, I can guarantee that I can help you step into the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian looked at the primordial dragon turtle and said proudly. A body refinement realm martial artist was able to make a terrifying great demonic beast at the peak of the wind-resisting realm submit to him. This was simply a pipe dream. However, Chu Fengmian had spoken just like that. You should know that my bloodline is enough for you to break through. The strength of the primordial dragon turtle clan could be determined just by their bloodline. The purer their bloodline, the stronger their strength would be. A primordial dragon turtle with a truly pure bloodline would not be any weaker than a true dragon in terms of strength. If one wanted to increase the bloodline of the primordial dragon turtle, the blood in Chu Fengmian's body would be the most useful. It was because of this that Chu Fengmian dared to make such a request. The temptation of the divine power realm was not something that all demonic beasts could resist. Chapter 103. You want me to submit to a little brat like you? The primordial dragon turtle looked at Chu Fengmian. His face was very lively as he revealed a gale smile. You're just a junior, but you're talking big. You think you can help me break through to the divine power realm? The divine power realm was a dividing line. It was a realm that countless demonic beasts couldn't break through in their lifetime. Now, Chu Fengmian suddenly said that he could help the ancient dragon turtle break through to the divine power realm. The ancient dragon turtle didn't believe it at all. If it wasn't for the fact that Chu Fengmian had the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon, he wouldn't have bothered to talk nonsense with Chu Fengmian. You don't believe me? You can give it a try. Chu Fengmian didn't say anything else. A drop of blood slowly flowed out from his fingertip. The blood was golden in color. Blood of the true dragon? No, this is the blood of the ancient battle dragon. Looking at the golden blood on Chu Fengmian's finger, the ancient dragon turtle could feel that the bloodline in his body was yearning for this drop of blood. This drop of blood was the purest blood of the ancient battle dragon. Although it wasn't the core blood, the energy it emitted was enough to make the ancient dragon turtle intoxicated. Ancient dragon turtle, I'll give you this drop of blood. Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancient dragon turtle. Chu Fengmian flicked his finger and the drop of golden blood flew towards the ancient dragon turtle. Seeing the drop of golden blood flying towards him, the ancient dragon turtle quickly opened his mouth and swallowed the drop of golden blood, refining it. Just this tiny drop of golden blood was enough to make the ancient dragon turtle feel that his own bloodline had become a little purer. If he could get more golden blood, he might really break through to the divine power realm. Ancient dragon turtle, you should understand now. As long as you submit, I, Chu Fengmian, swear that I'll let you enter the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian stared at the ancient dragon turtle and said calmly, "This is your last chance. Without my help, you won't be able to break through in your lifetime." Chu Fengmian's words were engraved in the ancient dragon turtle's heart. Chu Fengmian's blood did let the ancient dragon turtle see the hope of breaking through to the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian's words weren't wrong. This could be considered his last chance. The ancient dragon turtle was actually starting to age. Although its body had not aged, it was no longer young. It was almost impossible for him to rely on his own strength to break through to the divine force realm. Now, this was indeed his last chance. But if he, a great demon at the peak of the wind-controlling realm, had to submit to a mere body-refining realm martial artist, he would be extremely unwilling. His former master was Grand Emperor Richlush, the founder of the Kingdom of Martial Victories. The current Chu Fengmian was still too weak, but he didn't want to give up on this opportunity. No demon beast could resist the temptation of the Spirit Sea realm, and he was no exception. Once a demonic beast reached the Spirit Sea realm, it would be able to speak human language and even transform into a human. It would be a demon god instead of a demonic beast. Kid, as long as you're willing to help me break through to the divine force realm, I'm willing to sign a contract with you. I will help you cultivate to the wind-resisting realm. At the same time, in this Wu Xing country, I can also guarantee your safety. This condition is already not low, right? The primordial dragon turtle rolled his eyes and said. He was extremely unwilling to submit to Chu Fengmian, so he could only use a delaying tactic. The only way is to submit. Chu Fengmian looked at the primordial dragon turtle and said with a much colder tone, "You're just a primordial dragon turtle at the peak of the wind-resisting realm. If it wasn't because my strength is too weak, why would I let you be my subordinate? Now I'm giving you one last chance. Submit, and I guarantee you that you can step into the divine sea realm. Other than that, there's no other choice." Chu Fengmian said coldly. If it was his previous life, a primordial dragon turtle at the peak of the wind-resisting realm was nothing. Even the servants of the Sword Tao Master were experts who had reached the divine force realm. Letting the primordial dragon turtle be his servant was already giving him a chance. "I can give you countless elixirs, spiritual herbs, martial techniques, whatever you want, I can give you," the primordial dragon turtle said hurriedly. "As long as you change your condition, no matter what it is, I'll agree to it. How about it? There's only one way. Submit or never step into the divine force realm. You can choose for yourself." Chu Fengmian said coldly and ignored the primordial dragon turtle. He was just giving him one last chance to choose. Chu Fengmian's hand was holding the primordial dragon turtle's vital point. His blood was the only chance for the primordial dragon turtle to break through. "Lad, the primordial dragon turtle wanted to say something, but when he saw Chu Fengmian's expression, he understood. Chu Fengmian's words were dead. There was no room for discussion. He wanted to discuss with Chu Fengmian, but Chu Fengmian's attitude made it impossible for him to do so. The primordial dragon turtle was extremely unwilling to submit to Yi Shiwen. However, the drop of primordial battle dragon blood had ignited his originally silent heart. The divine force realm was right in front of him. How could he resist the temptation of the divine force realm? His lifespan was approaching the end. If he didn't break through, he might die in a few hundred years. This was his last chance. He had to grab it. This lad is really stubborn. Damn it. Isn't it just submitting? In the past, I could submit to Feng Rao. Now I can also submit to this lad. As long as I can step into the divine force realm, this is nothing. The primordial dragon turtle cursed in his heart. In front of a divine force realm expert, he could bear with it even if he had to submit. A cultivator's lifespan wasn't long. Even a cultivator who had reached the divine force realm would only have a lifespan of 1,000 years. 1,000 years in exchange for him to break through to the divine force realm. This wasn't a bad deal. "All right, lad, you're good. I'll submit to you as long as you can help me step into the divine force realm," the primordial dragon turtle shouted. "I've already agreed to submit. You should give me more primordial battle dragon blood." The primordial battle dragon blood was the key to his breakthrough. As long as he could obtain more primordial battle dragon blood and improve his bloodline, it wouldn't be difficult for him to step into the divine force realm. "Wait a minute. Let's sign a contract first." Chapter 104. Dragon God Oath? Seeing the ancient dragon-shaped contract, the ancient era's dragon tortoise was shocked. Then it spoke. The oath came from the true dragon clan. It was the most ancient oath. The oath had a binding effect on all existences with the bloodline of the true dragon. Chu Fengmian could not resist it, and neither could the ancient dragon turtle. The dragon god oath has been lost for thousands of years. I only heard about it when I was young. This kid actually knows it. Could it be that one of his parents is an ancient battle dragon? The ancient dragon turtle looked at Chu Fengmian and thought. The ancient battle dragon blood essence in Chu Fengmian's body was too strange. Even the ancient dragon turtle could not understand it. Especially Chu Fengmian, who knew the oath that had been lost for thousands of years. This kid can't be the illegitimate son of some old ancestor of the dragon clan, right? Such a pure bloodline. The ancient dragon turtle could not help but think. Only the illegitimate son of an old ancestor of the dragon clan who had lived for tens of thousands of years would be as strange as Chu Fengmian. Let's sign the contract. Chu Fengmian did not have the mood to care about the ancient dragon turtle's thoughts. He just said calmly, It was not that Chu Fengmian did not believe in the ancient dragon turtle, but the people of the 9 regions were sinister. Chu Fengmian had to be cautious. Otherwise, the ancient era's dragon tortoise would have betrayed and killed Chu Fengmian right after he helped it reach the divine power realm. What a cautious kid! Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the ancient dragon turtle could not help but say. He did have such a thought. As long as Chu Fengmian helped him reach the divine power realm, Chu Fengmian would be useless. Even if he did not kill Chu Fengmian, he would definitely leave. How would he be willing to be Chu Fengmian's servant? Fine, I'll sign it. The ancient dragon turtle snorted and spat out a mouthful of spiritual energy. It shone on the dragon god oath. Immediately 2 names were engraved on the dragon god oath. Then, the dragon god oath split into 2. One half entered Chu Fengmian's body, and the other half entered the ancient dragon turtle's body. On the contract, it was written that Chu Fengmian had to help the ancient dragon turtle break through to the divine power realm within 3 years. As for the ancient era's dragon tortoise, it would serve Chu Fengmian and assist him when he was around. After the contract was set, Chu Fengmian's worries were finally resolved. Brat, it's time to give me the blood of the primordial battle dragon. The primordial dragon turtle hastily shouted. He was already too demanding for that kind of feeling. That kind of feeling was enough to completely change his bloodline. The divine force realm was already very close. He couldn't wait any longer. Primordial dragon turtle, since you've already submitted, you should change the way you address me in the future. Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancient dragon turtle and said coldly. At the very least, you should address him as young master. Young master? The primordial dragon turtle was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. That's all right, young master. Since you've already agreed, you should keep your word. To the ancient dragon turtle, it was merely a form of address. Naturally, he would not care about it. All right. Seeing that the primordial dragon turtle was so sensible, Chu Fengmian naturally wouldn't go back on his word. On Chu Fengmian's fingertip, 1 drop, 2 drops, 3 drops, drop by drop, the blood of the primordial battle dragon was condensed by Chu Fengmian. In just 5 minutes, he had condensed 10 drops of primordial battle dragon blood. Go. He pointed his finger and flew towards the primordial dragon turtle. Ha ha, so much blood! The primordial dragon turtle burst into laughter and hurriedly devoured all the golden blood. These 10 drops of primordial battle dragon blood were enough to raise his bloodline to a new level. In just a few minutes, the primordial dragon turtle could feel that there were some changes in his cultivation realm. The divine force realm was no longer that unattainable. Instead, it was close at hand. Young master, I still need more primordial battle dragon blood. The primordial dragon turtle shouted. Humph, these 10 drops of primordial battle dragon blood are enough for you to refine for a while. Chu Fengmian said coldly. The level of your bloodline is still too low. If you raise it too much at once, your body won't be able to take it. It wasn't that Chu Fengmian didn't want to give the primordial dragon turtle some blood essence. The primordial dragon turtle's bloodline only had some real dragon bloodline. The current real dragon clan was just the descendants of the primordial battle dragon clan. Their bloodline wasn't pure to begin with. If Chu Fengmian were to give the primordial dragon turtle too much blood essence at once, it might burst. Yes. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, the primordial dragon turtle blushed. He knew that too. However, when he thought that the divine force realm was close at hand, he couldn't help but feel a little overwhelmed. Besides, do you think it's that easy to condense the primordial battle dragon blood essence? Condensing 10 drops is already the limit. It will take a long time to recover. Chu Fengmian said snappily. It wasn't an easy task for him to condense the primordial battle dragon blood essence. After all, Chu Fengmian wasn't the primordial battle dragon. He could only purify the bloodline in his body and give the primordial dragon turtle the blood essence. Take a long time to recover? Please don't. The primordial dragon turtle shouted anxiously. Chu Fengmian said that it would take a long time to recover. Who knew how long it would take? If Chu Fengmian dragged it out for a year or so, he wouldn't be able to wait any longer. "Oh right, young master. I have some elixirs that can recover spiritual energy. I'm not sure if it's effective for you," the primordial dragon turtle said anxiously. "Elixirs? Where is it?" Hearing the primordial dragon turtle's words, Chu Fengmian's face changed. What he needed now was elixirs. "It's in the deepest part of the cave. Young master, please come in," the primordial dragon turtle replied, and brought Chu Fengmian to the deepest part of the cave. In the deepest part of the cave, there were layers upon layers of jade bottles, spiritual weapons, and spiritual herbs. All of them were piled up messily, and there was a huge area. "Young master, these things belong to those who are seeking death. I have no use for them, so I piled them up here. Young master, you can use whatever you want," the primordial dragon turtle said heartily. Now that his bloodline had improved, he was in a good mood. He naturally wouldn't care about these worldly possessions. Moreover, those elixirs that were useful to warriors weren't very useful to him. Chapter 105. How many people did this primordial dragon turtle kill? Chu Fengmian couldn't help but think as he looked at the items on the ground. However, after thinking about it, the primordial dragon turtle had probably stayed on this deserted island for thousands of years. This deserted island had always been the testing site of the Wuxing Academy. Moreover, there would occasionally be some disciples who would come here to train and kill demonic beasts. There would always be a few ignorant people who would die at the hands of the primordial dragon turtle. These items should belong to those people. Chu Fengmian glanced at the jade bottles and roughly divided them. There were probably more than 100,000 energy-gathering pills in these jade bottles. Apart from that, there wasn't anything else of value. However, these 100,000 energy-gathering pills were a huge fortune. It was enough to satisfy the thirst for spiritual energy in Chu Fengmian's blood. Since he started cultivating the battle dragon skill, Chu Fengmian had always felt that his body was constantly thirsting for spiritual energy. It was as if he was a person who couldn't get enough. Chu Fengmian also understood why this battle dragon skill could only be cultivated by martial artists with divine veins. Without the divine veins constantly replenishing his spiritual power, Chu Fengmian would have been sucked dry by the battle dragon art. But even so, the divine veins could only maintain Chu Fengmian's body. They couldn't obtain spiritual energy to cultivate. If he wanted to cultivate, he would have to obtain countless elixirs. More than 100,000 energy-gathering pills. It's barely enough to set up a spirit-gathering array. Chu Fengmian looked at the energy-gathering pills and said in a low voice. Chu Fengmian took out all the energy-gathering pills, opened them, and placed them on the ground. When these energy-gathering pills were set up, it vaguely looked like a magic array. Cloth! Chu Fengmian let out a soft cry. Countless qi amassing pills turned into pure spiritual energy with a bang. The spiritual energy circled around Chu Fengmian and turned into a long dragon of spiritual energy. As Chu Fengmian pointed his finger, the long dragon of spiritual energy merged into Chu Fengmian's body. This spirit-gathering array was one of the 7 major sects, the Alpha Hall's magic array. After this spirit-gathering array was set up, it could extract the spiritual energy from the elixirs and turn it into a long dragon of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy of this long dragon of spiritual energy was extremely pure. Generally speaking, the Alpha Hall would use this spirit-gathering array to help their disciples cultivate. It was much faster than refining elixirs alone. However, this spirit-gathering array required at least 100,000 spirit-gathering pills to be set up. Therefore, it required hundreds of Alpha Hall disciples to train together before it could be set up. Otherwise, the strong spiritual energy in the long dragon would be enough to break a cultivator's body. However, this was only true for ordinary martial artists. For Chu Fengmian, now that he had cultivated the battle dragon art, His body could be considered to be hiding a huge appetite king. Chu Feng Mister's blood essence, blood's essences s blood's skill tests, blood ts out of the 129,600 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence, Chu Fengmian had only managed to condense 3 drops. No matter how much spiritual energy there was, it was impossible for Chu Fengmian's body to burst. Chu Fengmian needed all the spiritual energy. Condense. The long dragon of spiritual energy was completely devoured by Chu Fengmian. Suddenly, countless pure spiritual energy merged into the shadow of the ancient battle dragon in his body. Chu Fengmian could feel that the 4th and 5th drops of blood essence were about to condense at the same time. Great, I'll take this opportunity to condense 2 more drops of blood essence. Then, I'll have more power to protect myself in the Martial Victory Academy. Chu Fengmian was overjoyed. This was an unexpected gain. Chu Fengmian didn't know how many spirit-gathering elixirs he needed to accumulate. Now, he had obtained the ancient dragon turtle's collection. It was enough to condense 2 drops of blood essence in one go. Bang! Bang! From Chu Fengmian's body, 2 huge waves of spiritual energy burst out. His cultivation level had also risen by 2 levels, reaching the 7th level of the body refinement stage. Now, as Chu Fengmian's realm was getting higher and higher, the blood essence of the ancient battle dragon was less and less. However, Chu Fengmian could feel that his strength had actually increased by more than 10 times compared to before. Now, there were already 5 drops of blood essence of the ancient battle dragon in Chu Fengmian's body. All of them were activated. Chu Fengmian believed that he could fight against a 5th level or 6th level divine sea realm martial artist. With Chu Fengmian's age, this kind of strength was simply terrifying to the extreme. It seems that it's not an easy task to feed this ancient battle dragon. Chu Fengmian's joy was not over yet. He stood up and looked at the empty bottles. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. More than 100,000 spirit-gathering elixirs were enough for Chu Fengmian to condense 2 drops of blood essence of the ancient battle dragon. If it wasn't for such a huge fortune that came out of nowhere, Chu Fengmian would have needed a longer time to break through. However, now that Chu Fengmian had arrived at the Martial Victory Academy, it was much easier to obtain resources in the Martial Victory Academy compared to the outside world. The time for the second test should be ending soon. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. If he remembered correctly, it was already the 7th day. Looking at the time outside, it was less than 4 hours before the end of the test. It's time to leave, Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. He came to the Martial Victory Academy to participate in the test so that he could enter the Martial Victory Academy. This test could not be delayed. Young master, you're out? The ancient dragon turtle had been guarding outside the cave. When he saw Chu Fengmian coming out, he asked. The ancient dragon turtle knew that Chu Fengmian was cultivating in the cave. Therefore, he was guarding outside in case someone came to disturb Chu Fengmian. It seems that the blood essence has made your bloodline much purer. Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancient dragon turtle and said with a smile. Although the primordial dragon turtle had broken through, its current strength was more than twice as strong as before. He was not too far away from breaking through to the divine sea realm. Especially on the armor of the ancient dragon turtle, there was a dragon mark that was about to appear. This was the symbol of the ancient dragon turtle's bloodline being purified. His bloodline was closer to that of the ancient battle dragon. Chapter 106. The ancient dragon turtle clan inherited the bloodline of the true dragon. If their bloodline reached the limit, it was rumored that they could ascend and become a true dragon. With the help of Chu Fengmian's ancient battle dragon blood essence, this ancient dragon turtle was showing signs of transforming into a true dragon. When the dragon patterns on its shell were completely condensed, it would be the time for it to ascend and become a true dragon. Ascending and becoming a true dragon was definitely something that every ancient dragon turtle dreamed of. Right now, the ancient dragon turtle wasn't just hoping to step into the divine power realm. He was also hoping to ascend to the Dragon King realm. With your current bloodline, you should be able to reach the divine power realm in less than half a year, right? Chu Fengmian glanced at the ancient dragon turtle and said, I came to this deserted island to participate in Wuxing Academy's examination. It's time for me to leave. These 10 drops of blood essence are for you first. When you're about to break through to the divine power realm, you can devour these 10 drops of blood essence to help you break through to the divine power realm. Chu Fengmian said. He subdued the ancient dragon turtle for 2 reasons. Firstly, he didn't have a good choice back then. Secondly, he needed a trump card. With the ancient dragon turtle's realm, if it could reach the divine power realm, it would be an invincible existence in Wuxing Academy. Even if there was danger, Chu Fengmian could ask the ancient dragon turtle for help. This is a jade talisman that I made. If you're in danger, you can crush this jade talisman and I'll rush over in time. The ancient dragon turtle muttered and a jade talisman fell into Chu Fengmian's hand. He was very glad that he decided to submit to Chu Fengmian back then. He originally wanted to use Chu Fengmian's ancient battle dragon blood essence to help him break through to the divine power realm. However, the purity of Chu Fengmian's bloodline was beyond his expectations. Not only was it enough to help him break through to the divine power realm, but it was also enough to let him see the hope of becoming a true dragon. With such great benefits following Chu Fengmian, he didn't care if Chu Fengmian was a body-refining realm cultivator. Just the bloodline in Chu Fengmian's body was enough to make him submit to him. Alright. Chu Fengmian took the jade talisman and nodded. Cultivate in peace. Come and look for me when you break through to the divine power realm, Chu Fengmian said. With a move of his feet, his figure flashed and he left the mountain cave. He quickly ran towards the gathering point. Chu Fengmian did not expect to encounter such an ancient dragon turtle after coming to this deserted island. With the help of the primordial dragon turtle, Chu Fengmian could borrow its power even if he were to run into danger. However, unless he encountered a life and death crisis, Chu Fengmian absolutely did not plan to use the ancient dragon turtle's power. A martial artist had to experience countless dangers before they could grow. If Chu Fengmian wanted to become a true powerhouse, he needed to rely on himself and not others. 7 days later. Noon. Near the gathering point, there were already countless cultivators waiting there. The expressions of many of these people were filled with confidence. Clearly, they were confident that they would have the chance to enter the top 100. There were also some warriors whose faces were extremely dejected. Clearly, they had admitted defeat. Chu Fengmian knew Lin Maju, Chu Wuyin, and Ao Wuming. They had also arrived at the gathering point. The 3 of them stood at the front and their faces were filled with confidence. In these 7 days, the 3 of them had killed countless powerful demonic beasts. They had also killed many people who wanted to besiege them. Now, all of them were filled with confidence and wanted to fight for the first place in the demonic beast hunting assessment. Although there was no reward for the first place, for the peerless geniuses like them, who would not want to suppress others. Lin Maju, consider yourself lucky that you did not die in the hands of the Green Alliance. When Ao Wuming saw Lin Maju, he could not help but say. The 2 of them had some enmity between them. Naturally, they would mock each other when they met. Humph, how could those trash from the Green Alliance kill me? Lin Maju laughed. The strongest martial artist from the Green Alliance was only around the 5th level of the body refining realm. With Lin Maju's strength, he could fight against 10 of them. Even if he could not defeat them, it would not be a problem for him to escape. Those martial artists from the Green Alliance were not a threat to him. But those guys from the Green Alliance are strange. After 2 days they have disappeared. I wonder what Ching Kong is plotting. As Lin Maju spoke, he was also a little surprised. The disciples from the Green Alliance seemed to have disappeared from this deserted island after the 2nd day. There were no traces of them. They must have gone to deal with Chu Fengmian, Ao Wuming said while looking around. The assessment is about to end. Why is Chu Fengmian not here yet? Did he die in the hands of the Green Alliance? No way. With the strength of those martial artists from the Green Alliance, it is impossible for them to kill Chu Fengmian. Lin Maju shook his head and said. He had fought with Chu Fengmian before. Naturally, he knew Chu Fengmian's strength. Even if all the martial artists from the Green Alliance went after him, he was confident that he could escape. With Chu Fengmian's strength, there was no pressure at all. He could escape unscathed. The Green Alliance might not be able to deal with Chu Fengmian, but with the power of the Qing family and family Chu, it would not be difficult for them to secretly deal with Chu Fengmian. Chu Wuyin, who had been silent, suddenly spoke. There was a hint of worry in her words. The assessment was about to end. Almost all the martial artists had gathered. The only thing missing was the martial artists from the Green Alliance and Chu Fengmian. The Qing family and family Chu. Hearing this, Lin Maju was silent for a moment. It was indeed impossible for those disciples from the Green Alliance to deal with Chu Fengmian. But if it was the Qing family and family Chu, it would be a different story. These two families had deep roots in the Wuxing Academy. They could cover the sky with one hand. If they wanted to deal with Chu Fengmian, it would not take much effort. He didn't need much strength at all. He could crush Chu Fengmian to death with one hand. If it was really the Qing family and family Chu, they would have planned to kill Chu Fengmian on this deserted island during the assessment. Maybe they could really do it. Maybe it's true. Chu Fengmian is too arrogant. He has offended the Qing family and family Chu. If he offends either of these two families, he will be doomed. Ao Wuming shook his head and said. He was known as one of the four geniuses of the extreme capital, and the family behind him was not weak. Chapter 107. It was almost noon. Above the sky, 5 arcs slowly descended. On the ark, a few elders and some outer sect disciples alighted from the ark. One of the elders was the white-haired old man who had sent everyone to the deserted island. He was also the chief examiner of the second test, the demonic beast test. He jumped down from the arcs and looked at the crowd gathered around him. He couldn't help but frown. Now, there were only about 100 people in the crowd, not even 200. One should know that the arcs had sent a total of 500 people to the deserted island, not one more, not one less. Now, there were only so many people left. Every year, in this demonic beast hunting assessment, there would be some warriors who died in the mouths of demonic beasts due to their lack of strength. But at least 300 people should be able to survive. Now, there were only about 100 people left. This result was unbelievable. But now, there was still about 2 hours until the end of the assessment, so he was not in a hurry. After all, there must be some warriors who had not rushed back yet. Only at the very end would all the warriors return. Some warriors, in order to fight for the last chance, would hunt demonic beasts until the very last moment. Now, the warriors who returned to the rendezvous point were those who were confident that they had entered the top 100, such as Lin Maju and Ao Wuming. Otherwise, they were those who did not have any hope in the first place and gave up early. Whoosh! Whoosh! After a while, a few figures rushed out from the forest and returned to the rendezvous point. From time to time, some warriors would return. Whoosh! A figure flashed by. Chu Fengmian also jumped out from the forest and returned to the rendezvous point without attracting too much attention. He stood beside Chu Wuyin, Lin Maju, and the others. Chu Fengmian? You actually came back alive? Ao Wuming was shocked when he saw Chu Fengmian suddenly appear. He originally thought that Chu Fengmian might have been killed by the Qing family and family Chu on this deserted island. But now, Chu Fengmian's sudden appearance made him completely wrong. Chu Fengmian had returned. It seemed like Chu Fengmian's strength had increased in the past few days. Chu Fengmian's cultivation level had reached the 7th level of the body refining stage, the same level as him. In just 7 days, Chu Fengmian had actually advanced by 2 levels. He was truly a freak. Seeing that Chu Fengmian had returned, Chu Wuyin's face revealed a hint of joy. He couldn't help but sigh in relief. It seems that the Qing clan and family Chu may be able to do whatever they want in Wuxing Academy, but they don't dare to interfere with the sect entrance examination. No, the Qing family and family Chu are all dead. Chu Fengmian chuckled. What? Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Chu Wuyin was slightly absent-minded. Seeing Chu Fengmian return safely, she naturally thought that perhaps the Qing family Chu did not send anyone to deal with Chu Fengmian. After all, it would be as easy as crushing an ant for the 2 great clans to deal with a new disciple like Chu Fengmian. However, listening to Chu Fengmian's words, it turned out that the Qing clan and family Chu had sent people to deal with Chu Fengmian, but they were all killed by Chu Fengmian? Impossible. The Qing clan and family Chu are all expert. It would be a piece of cake for them to deal with a body-refining stage martial artist like you. Ao Wuming couldn't help but doubt Chu Fengmian's words. People like them knew more about the Qing clan and family Chu's power than ordinary disciples. These 2 great clans had already joined Wuxing Academy when it was founded. Their power was far beyond everyone's imagination. If you don't believe me, then let's wait and see. Chu Fengmian didn't say much and closed his eyes to concentrate. Now that Chu Fengmian had just broken through, the spiritual energy in his body was still a little unstable. In these 2 hours, Chu Fengmian could use this time to familiarize himself with the new power in his body. Time passed by slowly. The time for the assessment had come to an end. All the martial artists had returned to the assembly point. But now there were only 203 martial artists in total. Only 2/5 of the total number of martial artists were present. 3/5 of the martial artists were not present. Something's not right. Why is the second young master of the Qing clan not here? The white-haired elder glanced at the crowd and suddenly exclaimed in shock. The second young master of the Qing clan was present in this assessment. He still remembered that the Qing clan had specially instructed him to keep an eye on Qing Kong to prevent any accidents from happening. The white-haired elder naturally didn't think that anything could happen to Qing Kong, so he didn't care. However, Qing Kong's sudden disappearance made the white-haired elder panic for a moment. If Qing Kong really had an accident during the second assessment, the Qing clan would definitely take revenge on the white-haired elder. With the Qing clan's power, it would be a piece of cake for them to deal with an outer elder like him. Qing Kong really isn't here. Those Green Alliance disciples don't seem to be here either. What's going on? Ao Wuming glanced around and also found something amiss. He wasn't the only one. Almost all the martial artists had discovered something. None of the Green Alliance disciples, led by Qing Kong, returned. It was as if the 100 or so Green Alliance disciples had all disappeared at the same time. Could what Chu Fengmian said be true? The Qing clan and family Chu came to deal with him and were even killed by him? Did these Green Alliance disciples all die at Chu Fengmian's hands? Ao Wuming couldn't help but think of Chu Fengmian when he recalled what Chu Fengmian had said. Chu Fengmian had said that he would know in a while. Was he referring to Qing Kong? Chu Fengmian, do you know anything about Qing Kong? Ao Wuming asked softly. He was extremely curious about what was going on with Qing Kong. Until now, Qing Kong still hadn't appeared. It was enough to conclude that something must have happened to Qing Kong on this deserted island. Moreover, it was very likely that Qing Kong had already died on this deserted island. However, who would be able to kill Qing Kong under the protection of more than 100 Green Alliance disciples? Ao Wuming couldn't do it. Lin Maju and Chu Wuyin couldn't do it either. Chapter 108. Oh? That Qing Kong and the people from the Green Alliance? I've seen them before. Hearing Ao Wuming's words, Chu Fengmian revealed a strange smile. I saw that group of people. They seemed to be hunting an extremely powerful demonic beast. Perhaps they all died in the mouth of the demonic beast. Chu Fengmian was right. Those Green Alliance martial artists and Cheng Kong did not die in Chu Fengmian's hands. The one that killed them was the ancient dragon turtle. Chu Fengmian had merely witnessed the scene. Although the demonic cores that the Green Alliance disciples obtained were all in Chu Fengmian's hands, they could be considered as Chu Fengmian picked them up. Chu Fengmian's words were calm. But to Ao Wuming, it was absolutely chilling. Died in the mouth of a demonic beast? Coincidentally seen? How could there be such a coincidence? Moreover, with Cheng Kong's relationship with Chu Fengmian, it was already good enough that the Green Alliance did not cause trouble for Chu Fengmian. How could Chu Fengmian coincidentally see them? Seeing Chu Fengmian's half-smile, Ao Wuming's heart turned cold. Although Chu Fengmian seemed to be friendly, after witnessing Chu Fengmian's strength, Ao Wuming understood. Chu Fengmian was definitely not a kind person. He did not continue asking. Cheng Kong's life and death had nothing to do with him. He was just curious. Lin Maju and Chu Wuin's eyes were also thoughtful. They looked at Chu Fengmian but did not speak. It's time. An outer sect disciple beside the white-haired elder reminded softly. All right, ring the bell. The white-haired elder glanced at the crowd and nodded. No matter how many unforeseen events had happened, the rules of the assessment could not be changed. Dong. A bell rang, signifying the end of the demonic beast hunting assessment. All martial artists, line up in order and come forward one by one to submit your demonic cores. These demonic cores can be exchanged for Wu Xing Academy contribution point. Everyone who comes forward will be able to obtain their own identity badge. As the white-haired elder spoke, an outer sect disciple beside him took out their identity badges. A cultivator stepped forward and took out about a dozen monster cores from his storage bag. More than 10 elixirs were considered a large number for martial artists who had yet to reach the body refining realm. A total of 110 contribution points. The white-haired elder took a glance and said aloud, "Name." Fong Ming. The warrior replied, "Take your identity card and wait at the side." As soon as the white-haired elder spoke, the outer court disciple beside him handed over an identity token. Fong Ming's name and the number 110 were written on it. 110 contribution points. Chu Fengmian glanced at those Yao cores and suddenly understood. The value of those monster cores was about 300 or so qi gathering pills. It seemed that this demonic beast hunting assessment was actually a means to accumulate wealth. He was buying monster cores at 1/3 of the price. However, in order to pass the test, countless warriors would not hide their contribution point. The contribution points given could be considered as compensation. Next, following the white-haired elder's words, another cultivator walked forward and took out all the beast cores from the storage bags. Everyone walked forward one by one, but they weren't too surprised. Next. I'll do it. Suddenly, a voice rang out. Lin Maju, who was beside Chu Fengmian, strode forward. It's Lin Maju. Are the 4 geniuses finally going up? I wonder how many monster cores Lin Maju will have. Although countless people were curious about who would be the one to take the first place, almost everyone was clear about the answer. Only the 4 geniuses and Chu Fengmian had a chance of getting first place. The rest of the people did not even have the qualifications to participate in the competition. Whoosh! Lin Maju opened his storage bag and dozens of monster cores rolled out. This number was not considered a lot. For someone of Lin Maju's status, the crowd felt that dozens of elixirs were too little. However, in the next moment, when they noticed the power of the monster cores, their expressions changed drastically. All of them are monster cores above the 6th level of the body refining realm. How terrifying! Lin Maju actually hunted so many monster cores above the 6th level of the body refining realm. There are even a few monster cores from 8th level of the body refining realm. Some of the onlooking warriors were shocked. The strength of a monster core was even stronger than a warrior of the same level. However, Lin Maju was able to hunt monster cores at the 8th level of the body refining realm. Even the white-haired elder was slightly surprised. After calculating for a while, he suddenly opened his mouth and said, "That's right. A total of 3,700 contribution points." When the white-haired elder spoke, the crowd was in an uproar. Even many of the outer court disciples looked at Lin Maju in disbelief. 3,700 contribution points. This number was already higher than many best newcomer kings. This year's 4 geniuses are really terrifying. Just Lin Maju alone has surpassed many newcomer kings. Fortunately, only 3 of the 4 geniuses of the extreme capital came this time. The family Chu Bei-ji didn't come. Otherwise, this year's batch would be the strongest batch in 100 years. You can't say that. Although Chu Bei-ji isn't in this year's batch, there's still Chu Fengmian. Chu Bei-ji was defeated by Chu Fengmian during the ARC assessment. I heard that Chu Fengmian won by luck, because Chu Bei-ji was careless. Luck? Even if it's luck, why don't you try beating Chu Bei-ji again? A few outer court disciples were chatting with each other. In the previous batch that they participated in the assessment, there had never been such a monstrous genius. Lin Maju remained calm when he saw everyone's envious gaze. If it was in the past, he might have been proud. However, after being defeated by Chu Fengmian, Lin Maju understood. Among his peers, he wasn't necessarily the best. What right did he have to be proud of? Lin Maju walked to the side and looked at Chu Fengmian a few more times as if he was also waiting for Chu Fengmian's result. When Chu Fengmian saw this, he just smiled casually and didn't say anything. Lin Maju's strategy was the same as Chu Fengmian's. He only chose to hunt some high-level demonic beasts. Although 3,700 contribution points was not bad, Chu Fengmian was definitely going to take first place this time. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a hint of a smile. Since he had come to the Martial Victory Academy, he might as well make a name for himself and shock the Academy. Chapter 109. The next person who walked up was a familiar face to Chu Fengmian. Su Hu. He was the martial artist who was chased by the Green Alliance and was saved by Chu Fengmian. He followed Chu Fengmian and hunted many Green Alliance martial artists. Chu Fengmian gave him a portion of the monster cores. Later, when Chu Fengmian entered the cave and saw the primordial dragon turtle coming out, Su Hu hurriedly ran away. He couldn't be blamed. After all, the primordial dragon turtle came out. If he ran a little later, he would have been eaten by the primordial dragon turtle. Now that he saw it, it seemed that Su Hu had also completed the assessment. He wondered what kind of results Su Hu would get. 2,100 points. After checking Su Hu's monster cores, the white-haired elder said, "So high. This Su Hu actually has such a high number of points." Many people couldn't help but take a few more glances at Su Hu. Although these points couldn't be compared to Lin Maju, it was enough to rank him in the top 5 among all the martial artists who had been tested. In the end, it was very likely that he would rank in the top 10. This result was already good enough. If it were some weaker newcomers, Su Hu would at least rank in the top 3. Hearing this result, Su Hu's face was filled with joy. Obviously, he was also very satisfied with this result. He walked down and saw Chu Fengmian at first glance. He walked over to Chu Fengmian. "Congratulations on this result." Chu Fengmian saw Su Hu walking over and said with a smile. Su Hu had a martial heart. Chu Fengmian also hoped that he would have a smooth journey on the martial path. If he got a good ranking, it would be easier for him to be valued by the hall masters and elders. He might even be promoted to the inner sect. "Thank you, Senior Chu. Without you, I would have died long ago. How could I have such a result?" Su Hu said gratefully. He had always remembered Chu Fengmian's life-saving grace. "When I enter the school, if there's anything that Su Hu can do, please let me know." "All right." Chu Fengmian nodded. He didn't refuse. After all, Su Hu was indebted to Chu Fengmian. Since Su Hu wanted to repay his kindness, Chu Fengmian naturally wouldn't stop him. "It's my turn next." Ao Wuming asked impatiently as soon as Su Hu was done. As soon as Lin Maju finished, he wanted to step forward, but he was a little slow. He and Lin Maju had always been at loggerheads with each other. The two of them also wanted to compete in this time's sect entrance examination. Ao Wuming stepped forward and opened his storage bag. Dozens of monster cores rolled out. Ao Wuming was similar to Lin Maju. The demonic beasts he hunted were all demonic beasts at the 6th level of the body refinement stage and above. Looking at their numbers, they were not inferior to Lin Maju at all. The white-haired elder checked them one by one before speaking. 3,700 contribution points. 3,700 points. It was exactly the same number as Lin Maju's. Hearing this result, Ao Wuming and Lin Maju couldn't help but look at each other. They did not expect that the numbers would be exactly the same. The two of them were actually tied. The strength of these two people is really on par. 3,700 points. I wonder if anyone can surpass this number in this year's batch. The previous batch's newcomer king only had 2,900 points, not even 3,000 points. This time, there are two newcomers with 3,700 points in one bat. Looks like Wu Xing Academy is going to be lively for a while. Countless martial artists discussed among themselves. This was already an extremely terrifying number. Next, the white-haired elder spoke again. Although his tone was calm, there was an indescribable shock in it. This year's newcomers were indeed a little too strong. With so many monster cores, even some of the outer disciples might not be able to kill so many monster cores. With the strength that Lin Maju and Ao Wuming had displayed, it would not be a problem for them to enter the inner sect. Since senior brother Chu has no intention of going, junior sister will go first. Chu Wuyin glanced at Chu Fengmian. Seeing that Chu Fengmian was not in a hurry, she moved her feet and walked forward. She opened her storage bag, and more than 10 beast cores rolled out from it. These monster cores were the same as Lin Maju and Ao Wuming. They were all monster cores above the 6th level of the body tempering realm. Instead of hunting low-level demonic beasts, it would be easier to hunt high-level demonic beasts. After all, the result of the demonic beast hunting assessment was not based on the number, but the value. Therefore, the three of them adopted this strategy. However, compared to Lin Maju and Ao Wuming, the number of monster cores that Chu Wuyin had was obviously lower. 3,200 points. The white-haired elder calculated and said, 3,200 points. Although this number was not as high as Lin Maju and Ao Wuming, it was still an extremely shocking number. One should know that the previous batch's newcomer king only had 2,900 points. The current Chu Wuyin had already surpassed the previous batch's newcomer king. This result was also within Chu Fengmian's expectations. After all, Chu Wuyin's strength was still slightly weaker than Lin Maju and Ao Wuming. However, this number was already worthy of the reputation of the four great geniuses. After all, excluding the three of them, there were only slightly more than 10 people who could reach 1,000 points among the remaining martial artists. Moreover, only 3 people had reached 2,000 points. One of them was Su Hu, whom Chu Fengmian had met before. Su Hu had previously shared many monster cores with Chu Fengmian. In addition to the ones that he had hunted later, it was enough for him to be ranked in the top 10 in this round. Was 3,700 points the limit? Many of the spectating martial artists were looking forward to it. If 3,700 points was the limit, it would be the highest number at least in the past 10 years. Only 15 years ago did a person like Ling Tian appear. Ling Tian was enough to be called the #1 genius in the victorious martial country in 100 years. It was said that he had reached 5,100 points in the second round of the assessment. This number was more than 1,000 points higher than the current Lin Maju and Ao Wuming. It was likely that no one would be able to break this probability within 100 years. I wonder if Chu Fengmian has a chance to challenge Ling Tian's record. Everyone's eyes were all on Chu Fengmian. Now Lin Maju, Ao Wuming, and Chu Wuyin had all had their result. The only person who had a chance to surpass this number was Chu Fengmian. Although Chu Fengmian wasn't one of the four great geniuses, he was still able to defeat Chu Bei-go. Even if many people thought that it was a fluke, they were still looking forward to his strength. It seems that it's my turn. Looking at everyone's eyes, Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a smile. Chapter 110. Chu Fengmian. Everyone's eyes were focused on Chu Fengmian. Now, the only thing left was Chu Fengmian, the dark horse. Chu Fengmian could surpass Ling Tian in the first test, the martial evaluation stone. Perhaps Chu Fengmian could really do it in the second test. It's actually him? Why isn't he dead? Hearing everyone's discussion, the white-haired elder finally noticed Chu Fengmian's existence. His eyes were filled with surprise. Chu Fengmian had offended the Qing family and family Chu. As far as he knew, the two great clans had already sent people to kill Chu Fengmian on this deserted island. But after 7 days, Chu Fengmian was still alive. This had greatly exceeded his expectations. The Qing clan and the Chu clan actually failed when they made a move. Although the white-haired old man was extremely surprised, his expression was still extremely calm. He watched Chu Fengmian walk in and said flatly, "Take out all the monster cores." Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a confident smile. He strode forward and opened a storage bag. Piles of monster cores rolled out from the storage bag. Whoosh! At a glance, the number of monster cores was no less than 200 to 300. So many monster cores! This number, is it really possible for a cultivator to kill? He didn't cheat, right? Some of the surrounding cultivators began to chat. The other cultivators who participated in the final test had killed less than 100 monster cores at most. Chu Fengmian took out 200 to 300 monster cores in one go. On average, he would have killed more than 30 monster cores in a day. This number was definitely an astronomical figure. Not necessarily. Look at the grade of these monster cores. They're actually not high. A cultivator said in a deep voice. He noticed that the demon cores Chu Fengmian took out were slightly uneven. Although it wasn't that there weren't any high-grade demon cores, when compared to Lin Maju and Ao Wuming, the demon cores they took out were all high-grade demon cores at the 6th level of the body refinement stage and above. Chu Fengmian's monster cores were naturally inferior to theirs. The final score is also closely related to the grade of the Yao cores. No matter how many low-grade Yao cores you have, the contribution points you get won't necessarily be many. Hearing this warrior's explanation, many of the spirit masters came to a realization. After all, if Lin Maju, Ao Wuming, and the others were allowed to hunt low-level monster beasts, the number would probably not be less than this. Although there were a lot of beast cores, their grades were not high. Their final score might not surpass Lin Maju and Ao Wuming's 3,700 point. Yes, a total of 2,800 point. The white-haired elder said as he counted the monster cores. Not bad. With this number, you should be able to enter the top 5. 2,800. When the crowd heard this number, not many of them were surprised. Instead, most of them sighed. Of course, their expectations for Chu Fengmian weren't just a little bit. In their eyes, even if Chu Fengmian, a dark horse who had killed his way out of the first trial, couldn't compare to Ling Tian, Chu Fengmian was still a dark horse. He had to surpass Lin Maju and Ao Wuming. However, a number of 2,800 points was still inferior to the current 4 great geniuses. As expected, this kid was in the limelight in the first trial. In the second trial, he revealed his true colors. How can an outsider kid compete with true geniuses like the 4 great geniuses? This number is his true strength. Some of the warriors who were on good terms with the Qing family and family Chu looked at Chu Fengmian and couldn't help but mock and ridicule him. Chu Fengmian had always been regarded as this year's newcomer king. Many people even compared Chu Fengmian to the Ji Lingtian 15 years ago. Now, seeing that Chu Fengmian's score was even inferior to Lin Maju and Ao Wuming, these people all stood out and ridiculed him. An outsider. Does he really think he's a peerless genius, and wants to compare himself to the Zhilingtian? This number isn't even enough to become the newcomer king in some of the weaker trials. A warrior from the family Chu's side branch sneered. This number seems to be a little too little. Lin Maju glanced at Chu Fengmian and muttered to himself. The number of 2,800 points was much less than he had imagined. In his opinion, even if Chu Fengmian couldn't beat them, it wouldn't be much less than them. Here's your identity card. Go to the side and wait. The white-haired elder took out an identity card and handed it to Chu Fengmian. Wait, it's not over yet. Looking at the identity card handed over by the white-haired elder, Chu Fengmian revealed a somewhat evil smile. What I just took out is only a portion. I'm afraid that the elder won't be able to count it clearly, so I took it out. As Chu Fengmian spoke, he took out a storage pouch as if he was performing a magic trick. There's more? This kid actually has a storage pouch. Looking at Chu Fengmian's actions, countless warriors around were speechless. The white-haired elder's mouth also twitched a little. Afraid that he won't be able to count it clearly? As an invigilator, he didn't know how many monster cores he had counted. Was he afraid that he wouldn't be able to count it clearly? How many monster cores do you have? Take them out together. Don't waste time. No matter how many monster cores you have, I can count them clearly. The white-haired elder said proudly. Is that so? Then the elder will have to count them carefully. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed a hint of a smile. He opened the storage pouch with one hand and immediately, piles of monster cores rolled out. This storage pouch was also filled to the brim. There seemed to be at least 200 or 300 monster cores. So this kid has so many monster cores that even a storage pouch can't hold them all? Many warriors sucked in a breath of cold air. Was it really possible for one person to hunt so many monster cores? Their surprise wasn't over yet. They saw Chu Fengmian take out another storage pouch as if he was performing a magic trick. Under the astonished eyes of the crowd, he opened the storage pouch, and immediately, countless monster cores rolled out. This storage pouch was also filled with monster cores. Countless monster cores were piled up on the ground, forming a small hill. This number was not necessarily less than the total number of monster cores of the previous warriors. It's over. There must be at least 700 or 800 of these monster cores, right? Some warriors said in surprise. Only then did they realize that the monster cores Chu Fengmian took out just now were just an appetizer. Chu Fengmian never let them down. Chapter 111. There were so many monster cores. Could it be that Chu Fengmian could break Zhilingtian's record? This was the first thought that popped into everyone's mind. Zhilingtian was the legend of Wuxing Academy. He was the undisputed #1 genius during the entrance examination. 15 years later, Zhilingtian was the #1 genius of Wuxing Academy, the #1 expert of the younger generation. He was a mythical figure. In many people's eyes, Zhilingtian's legend could not be broken before his death. However, Chu Fengmian's appearance was beyond everyone's imagination. Especially when Chu Fengmian broke Zhilingtian's record in one fell swoop during the first test. Now, in the second test, Chu Fengmian had just taken out a storage bag with 2,800 monster cores. Now, Chu Fengmian took out 2 storage bags full of monster cores. This number might really be enough to surpass Zhilingtian. It's over. The white-haired elder stared blankly at the monster cores that Chu Fengmian poured out. After a long while, he spoke. Then I'll start counting. Is it over? There seems to be a little more. Chu Fengmian's face showed some doubt as if he was thinking about something. He took out another storage bag. There's more? Seeing Chu Fengmian take out another storage bag, many martial artists' hearts were about to collapse. How many demonic beasts had Chu Fengmian killed? Could it be that he had killed all the demonic beasts on this island? There were so many monster cores. Even if they lined up for Chu Fengmian to kill, Chu Fengmian might not be able to kill all of them. Whoosh! The number of monster cores poured out this time was not many. There were only about 30 of them. However, this batch of monster cores was much larger than the ones that Chu Fengmian took out just now. The spiritual energy emitted from the monster cores was also of different levels. Countless martial artists were dumbfounded when they saw the monster cores that Chu Fengmian poured out. The scene was dead silent. Only the sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard. These are all monster cores above the 7th level of the body refining realm? A cultivator asked in a daze. The crowd finally reacted. These over 30 demonic cores were all demonic cores above the 7th level of the body refinement stage. Among them, the largest ones had extremely pure spiritual energy. A peak body refinement realm Yao core. Chu Fengmian was actually able to kill a demonic beast at the peak of the body refinement realm. Elder, please do the inventory, Chu Fengmian said with a smile. This batch of monster cores was killed by Chu Fengmian himself. The rest of the monster cores were taken from the hands of the Green Alliance disciples. However, the demonic cores that Chu Fengmian had taken out were only a small portion. One had to know that Chu Fengmian alone had taken the demonic cores of nearly 200 martial artists from the Green Alliance. It was too much of a loss to give all of them to Wuxing Academy. Chu Fengmian planned to sell the rest for a good price in exchange for pills. I knew it. How could someone who could defeat me be so weak? The corners of Lin Maju's mouth curled into a smile. Only such a person could become a formidable opponent for Lin Maju and become the target of Lin Maju's pursuit. So many beast cores. Could it be that Qing Kong and the Qing Alliance were really killed by this brat? Ao Wuming looked at the demonic cores that Chu Fengmian took out, and a terrifying thought appeared in his mind. With his own strength, it was absolutely impossible to hunt so many monster cores. There was only one possibility to obtain so many monster cores. That was, Chu Fengmian had hunted down other warriors and snatched away their monster cores. Chu Fengmian and Qing Kong had a grudge against the Green Alliance. There was no need to guess where Chu Fengmian's demonic cores came from. How many disciples of the Green Alliance have died at Chu Fengmian's hands? Ao Wuming shuddered as he looked at the demonic cores that Chu Fengmian took out. Such a young genius was actually so decisive in killing. It could even be said that he was ruthless and merciless. Provoking Chu Fengmian would most likely result in him being consigned to eternal damnation. Ao Wuming quickly thought to himself. No matter what, he could not provoke Chu Fengmian in the future. Although Chu Wuyin did not speak, the shock in her eyes was enough to express her thoughts. Qing Kong, the second son of the Qing family and the martial artists of the Green Alliance, were definitely killed by this brat. The white-haired elder looked at Chu Fengmian with a strange expression. Qing Kong and the martial artists of the Green Alliance were all dead. Now that he saw Chu Fengmian take out so many demonic cores, he understood. It was definitely Chu Fengmian who killed the martial artists of the Green Alliance. Otherwise, it would be impossible to obtain so many demonic cores. Elder, please count them. Chu Fengmian's face was calm as he spoke again. All right. The white-haired elder heard Chu Fengmian's voice and calmed down. He had to continue with the test. The white-haired elder picked up the demonic cores one by one and calculated something. Normally, martial artists would only need about 5 minutes to calculate the result. However, it took a full hour for Chu Feng to arrive. This white-haired elder's brows were already dripping with sweat. Only then did he finally raise his head. With so many Yao cores, it was not an easy task to solidify all of them. The number of demonic cores had reached almost 1,000. This number was much more than the total number of demonic cores in the previous test. A total of 13,000 contribution points. The white-haired elder announced loudly. 13,000 contribution points. When the crowd heard this number, their first reaction was to pinch themselves to make sure it was real. 13,000 contribution points. This number is more than double the record set by the highest Lingtian. Is Chu Fengmian human? How can he have so many demonic cores? Countless martial artists discussed in disbelief. This number was simply too shocking. 3 of the 4 geniuses, Lin Maju, Ao Wuming, and Chu Wuyin, had killed fewer demonic beasts than Chu Fengmian. How is this possible? How can a martial artist kill so many demonic beasts in 7 days? The family Chu martial artist who was mocking Chu Fengmian earlier shouted loudly. Cheating, this kid must be cheating. He prepared a large number of demonic cores in advance. That's why there are so many of them. That's right, this kid must be cheating. Strip him of his qualification and expel him from the academy. The other Chu family and Qing family's martial artists also began to shout loudly. The waves of voices were louder than the previous. Chapter 112. Cheating. Chu Fengmian didn't bother to hide the ridicule in his eyes. He spat out a few words of sarcasm. Are the people from the Qing family and family Chu all idiots? You, Chu Fengmian, how dare you be so arrogant after cheating? Is it possible for a body-refining realm martial artist to hunt 1,000 demonic beasts by himself? The cultivator from the family Chu was not to be outdone as he spoke to the white-haired elder. Elder, please investigate the truth. A cheating brat is not qualified to enter our academy of wuxing. Idiot! Chu Fengmian couldn't help but say this when he heard the cultivator from the family Chu. He didn't lower his voice when he said this, so all the martial artists present could hear him clearly. You, Chu Fengmian, are you really out of control? This is the Academy of Wuxing. What? Do you want to teach me a lesson? Chu Fengmian's eyes were filled with killing intent. The cultivator from the family Chu didn't dare to speak when he saw Chu Fengmian's killing intent. Teach him a lesson? With Chu Fengmian's strength, killing him would be as easy as crushing an ant. Even Chu Beige wasn't Chu Fengmian's match, so how could they, a branch family disciple, be Chu Fengmian's opponent? His hopes were all placed on the white-haired elder. Elder, shut up. Before the cultivator from the family Chu could speak, the white-haired elder interrupted him. All of Chu Fengmian's demonic cores are indeed from the demonic beasts on this deserted island. There is no problem. After the white-haired elder said those words, the Chu clan's cultivator was immediately left speechless. He was unable to say another word. The Academy of Wuxing had chosen this deserted island as the location for the test after careful consideration. The demonic beasts on this deserted island were extremely special and couldn't be found in the country of Wuxing. Therefore, these demonic cores couldn't be fake. The white-haired elder's words made it clear that there was no problem with Chu Fengmian's demonic cores. Although this second assessment was called the Demonic Beast Hunting Assessment, in reality, it did not prohibit martial artists from snatching from each other. Therefore, even if Chu Fengmian didn't kill these monster cores, it wouldn't be a problem even if Chu Fengmian picked them up. In that case, do you have anything else to say? Chu Fengmian looked at the warrior from the family Chu and sneered. With these methods, he still wanted to target Chu Fengmian. He couldn't even disgust Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian, just you wait. Our family Chu isn't that easy to bully. When you enter the academy, you'll know what it means to be stupid. The warrior from family Chu said coldly. As long as Chu Fengmian entered Wuxing Academy, the family Chu would have 10,000 ways to crush him. Stupid? You're the one who's truly stupid. Chu Fengmian's eyes revealed some coldness as he looked at the warrior from the family Chu and suddenly opened his mouth. Threats without strength are just courting death. As he spoke, a surge of spiritual energy suddenly erupted from Chu Fengmian's body. This surge of spiritual energy filled Chu Fengmian's body without any concealment. It was like a ferocious tiger that was ready to kill its prey at any time. What? You dare to make a move? We're in the middle of the assessment. If you dare to make a move, you'll be provoking Wuxing Academy. The warrior from family Chu didn't back down when he saw the spiritual energy erupting from Chu Fengmian's body. He dared to ridicule Chu Fengmian because they were in front of the elders of Wuxing Academy. Wuxing Academy forbade private fights, although this was only a rule on the surface. However, if he rashly made a move in front of the elders wouldn't just stand by and watch. Is that so? Provoking Wuxing Academy? Do you think this rule will work on me? Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold as his body suddenly moved. His speed was so fast that the white-haired elder couldn't react in time. When he finally reacted, Chu Fengmian was already in front of the warrior from family Chu. "Have mercy!" the white-haired elder shouted hurriedly. As the invigilator, he was already in a lot of trouble when Cheng Kong got into trouble. If another warrior from family Chu got into trouble, if that was the case, his position as an elder would be over. "How dare you!" Even though Chu Fengmian was in front of him, the warrior from family Chu didn't show any fear in his eyes. In his opinion, Chu Fengmian was just bluffing. He couldn't believe that Chu Fengmian dared to challenge Wuxing Academy's rules. Slap. However, in the next moment, a clear and melodious voice caused all the thoughts in his heart to completely collapse. Chu Fengmian's slap landed accurately on the warrior from family Chu's face. Although Chu Fengmian didn't use his full strength, he didn't hold back either. The flesh on the warrior's face was almost torn off by Chu Fengmian's slap. It was obvious how ruthless Chu Fengmian's slap was. "How dare he hit me! How dare he hit me in front of an elder!" The Chu family's warriors were repeating these two sentences in their minds. In his opinion, no matter how arrogant Chu Fengmian was, he wouldn't dare to defy Wuxing Academy's rules. But he was wrong. Chu Fengmian was a person who would never be threatened or restrained. He was a truly lawless person. From the very beginning, Chu Fengmian didn't care about Wuxing Academy's rules. "You said I wouldn't dare?" Chu Fengmian sneered. Slap. Another slap landed on the warrior from family Chu's face. This time, the warrior from family Chu's face was bleeding profusely. Chu Fengmian's two slaps had disfigured the warrior from family Chu's face. It was a bloody mess for a moment. "Chu Fengmian, I'll kill you!" After the two slaps, the warrior from family Chu finally reacted. Spiritual power erupted from his body as he threw a punch at Chu Fengmian. "You know how to resist? Unfortunately, it's useless," Chu Fengmian muttered to himself. Chu Fengmian moved his hand and blasted out a palm. The warrior from family Chu was sent flying by the palm and fell to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood and fainted. "Chu Fengmian, stop!" The white-haired elder hurriedly stood in front of Chu Fengmian. If he didn't intervene, the warrior from family Chu would really be killed by Chu Fengmian. The white-haired elder walked to the side of the Chu family martial artist and felt the Chu family martial artist's aura. His heart relaxed slightly. Chu Fengmian's slaps were all superficial wounds. There was no problem. However, the warrior from family Chu was humiliated. He was so angry that he fainted. "Elder, you saw it. This guy asked me to hit him. You can't blame me." Chapter 113. He attacked in front of the elder of Wuxing Academy. The family Chu warrior was not the only one who hadn't thought of this. The onlookers were also surprised. This Chu Fengmian is really arrogant. He actually dared to attack in front of the elder of Wuxing Academy and challenge the school rules. What a reckless guy. It looks like he's going to be taught a lesson. Some warriors whispered among themselves. Hearing their discussion, Chu Fengmian's smile grew wider. Teach him a lesson? Chu Fengmian didn't believe that the elder would teach him a lesson. Chu Fengmian said indifferently, "Elder, it was that guy who provoked us first. You saw it too. Humph, Wuxing Academy has always prohibited private fights. Even if you're not a disciple of Wuxing Academy, you'll still be punished." The white-haired elder snorted coldly and continued to speak to Chu Fengmian. "However, since you had a reason for this and it's your first offense, I'll only punish you this once. But remember, once you join Wuxing Academy, you'll have to abide by the school rules. You're not allowed to do this again." This disciple will remember. Chu Fengmian replied calmly. As he spoke, he took the identity token and stood to the side. Chu Fengmian didn't even spare a glance at the Chu family's warrior who was injured by him. Although the white-haired elder did say a few words, he didn't punish Chu Fengmian at all. He only said a few words, only this once. This sentence couldn't even be considered a lesson. This result was absolutely not something that those martial artists could have imagined. Only Lin Maju, Ao Wuming, and the others shook their heads when they saw the crowd's reaction. Chu Fengmian had just taught the family Chu warrior a lesson. Although it looked like he had used a lot of force, in fact, he hadn't caused any fundamental damage to the family Chu warrior. They were all superficial wounds that couldn't be seen in public. Since Chu Fengmian didn't cause any harm, the white-haired elder wouldn't become enemies with Chu Fengmian over an ordinary family Chu warrior. He would just casually say a few words and the matter would be over. After all, although the rules stated that private fights were not allowed, Wu Xing Academy had always respected martial arts. Everyone was a martial artist, so the simplest way to resolve a dispute was to fight. Therefore, private fights happened almost every day. The higher-ups of Wu Xing Academy were afraid that things would get out of hand, so they came up with this rule. But in the dark, as long as no lives were lost, almost no one would care. Moreover, even if he were to punish Chu Fengmian, he would at most face the wall for a month. Instead of punishing Chu Fengmian like this, he might as well sell him some benefit. Chu Fengmian was this year's newcomer king, especially when he had broken 2 of Ji Lingtian's records. With Chu Fengmian's talent, he would definitely enter the inner sect of Wuxing Academy in the future. He might even become a legendary core disciple. Offending Chu Fengmian was an extremely unwise thing to do. Chu Fengmian played with the identity card in his hand and looked at the 23,000 points on it with a smile in his eyes. These contribution points were added to the 10,000 points Chu Fengmian had obtained during the ARC assessment. 23,000 points was a wealth that even outer sect disciples who had been in the academy for several years couldn't accumulate, let alone a newcomer who had just entered the academy. When the surrounding martial artists saw the number on the identity card in Chu Fengmian's hand, their eyes flashed with greed. However, the look in their eyes changed very quickly. Greed wasn't scary, but greed without strength was just like the previous family Chu martial artist. He was courting death. Chu Fengmian was terrifying, so he wasn't someone they could afford to offend. With these contribution points, Chu Fengmian would be able to buy some things without restraint when he entered Wuxing Academy. The white-haired elder's words were actually within Chu Fengmian's expectations. He wouldn't offend Chu Fengmian for an ordinary family Chu martial artist unless he was crazy. Although the white-haired elder was afraid of family Chu and obeyed family Chu, he wasn't a member of the family Chu. He wasn't that stupid to throw his life away for family Chu. The rest of the martial artist assessment ended very quickly. The rankings were already out. Chu Fengmian was in first place. His 13,000 points made him the highest number in the history of the second assessment. It was more than twice as high as the record set by the Ji Lingtian 15 years ago. Lin Maju and Ao Wuming were tied for second and third place respectively. 3,700 contribution points was actually very dazzling, but their radiance had been completely overshadowed by Chu Fengmian. Everyone didn't have much to say about the two of them anymore. Chu Wuyin was in fourth place. Su Hu was in fifth place. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but take a few more glances at him. Being in fifth place wasn't just because of Chu Fengmian's help, but also because of his own efforts. Chu Fengmian wasn't interested in watching the rest of the rankings. All his thoughts were on the third round of the trial, the path to heaven. This was the reason why Chu Fengmian came to Wuxing Academy. He wanted to see the legendary path to heaven. Martial artists in the top 100, please board the first arc and head to the path to heaven. The rest of the martial artists, please board the other arcs and report to the lower level to claim your identity. The white-haired elder ordered loudly. These martial artists were divided into two. The lower level was where the odd-job disciples of Wuxing Academy were. Those who didn't enter the top 100 would be assigned to the lower level and become odd-job disciples. Unless their strength increased greatly in the future, they might be promoted to outer sect disciples. Otherwise, they might be stuck as odd-job disciples for the rest of their lives. The martial artists who headed to the path to heaven were extremely glad. As long as they passed the second assessment, they would at least be outer sect disciples. Even if they couldn't become inner sect disciples because there weren't any hall masters or elders on the path to heaven, they would still be outer sect disciples. Becoming an outer sect disciple was much better than being an odd-job disciple. They could obtain normal resources and cultivate normally. They could avoid the heavy labor. Phew, it's finally over. I didn't expect so many unforeseen events to happen in this assessment. The white-haired elder watched the arc leave and took a deep breath. Too many things had happened in this assessment, causing him to be somewhat flustered. It seems like I have to inform the Qing family, Family Chu, and the Crown Prince. They will all be interested in Chu Fengmian. Chapter 114. What? Qing Kong is dead? In a huge palace on the upper level of Wuxing Academy. Two old men were sitting in the palace. It was unknown what they were talking about. One of the old men took out a message jade talisman and opened it with spiritual power. The voice that came from the talisman made the old man's face turn red with anger. Isn't Qing Kong protected by someone? Besides, he has the power of the Green Alliance. Who could kill him in the test? The old man's anger was mixed with shock. When Qing Kong went to participate in the second test, the Qing family specially arranged a warrior of the Spirit Sea realm to be his bodyguard to ensure his safety. There were only screaming warriors on the deserted island. The strongest warriors were only at the peak of the body refining realm. Divine Sea realm warriors were almost invincible. That was why the old man didn't expect that someone could kill Qing Kong on the deserted island. That's impossible. The test on the deserted island is dangerous, but Mo Qing is protecting him. The other old man's face changed when he heard the words in the message jade talisman. They were well aware of Qing Kong's strength. He was not considered strong in this assessment. Because of this, they had specially sent Mo Qing, a divine sea realm warrior, to protect Qing Kong. How could Qing Kong die with the protection of a divine sea realm warrior? Mo Qing is dead too, the old man said in a low voice. He couldn't contact Mo Qing either. Damn it! Who is it? Who dares to kill a disciple of the Qing family? The old man was furious. He continued to read the contents of the message jade talisman. One of the names caught his attention. Chu Fengmian. This Chu Fengmian actually managed to survive. Furthermore, he obtained first place in the trial. The old man murmured the name. In the extreme capital, Qing, the young master of the Qing family, had his ribs broken by Chu Fengmian. In the eyes of the Qing family, Chu Fengmian was like an ant that could be crushed at any time. They didn't care. They sent Mo Qing to protect Qing Kong so that Mo Qing could find a chance to kill Chu Fengmian. But now, Chu Fengmian wasn't dead, but Qing Kong was. Damn it, Qing Kong's death is definitely related to this Chu Fengmian. This brat has repeatedly provoked our Qing family. Does he really think that there's no one left in our Qing family? The old man said furiously. Men, kill this brat for me. Old patriarch, please wait. Another old man hurriedly tried to persuade him. Let's put the matter of that brat aside for now. Mo Qing is dead. Will there be any problems with that matter? The other old man's eyes lit up as he spoke. Mo Qing went to the deserted island not only to protect Qing Kong and kill Chu Fengmian, but also to do something more important. Over there was the rich lush tombstone. Now that Mo Qing was dead, there was the matter of the richly lush steel. If it weren't for the fact that the richly lush steel was still there, they would have simply ignored it and sent someone else to retrieve it. However, if the richly lush steel was taken away by someone else, then all of their plans would be foiled. Are you saying that it might be family Chu's doing? The old patriarch of the Qing family frowned. Chu Fengmian was only at the 5th level of the body refinement realm. No matter how strong he was, the peak of the body refinement realm was his limit. That level of strength was far from enough to threaten Mo Qing. But now it wasn't just Qing Kong. Mo Qing was dead as well. This wasn't something that Chu Fengmian could have done alone. On the deserted island, the only person who could threaten Mo Qing was family Chu's Chu Bei. They were both in the Divine Sea realm, but he was the only one who could have killed Mo Qing. The family Chu might have allied with us, but we're still two different families. Perhaps it's family Chu's doing. We still need to contact the family Chu and find out what's going on. The other old man spoke slowly. The most important thing for us now is to get the richly lush steel. As for that brat Chu Fengmian, we'll leave him to the youngsters of the Green Alliance. Our Qing family isn't that easy to bully. This brat injured Qing Qin, so of course we have to teach him a lesson. The Green Alliance's power is more than enough to deal with a brat like him. All right. The old patriarch of the Qing family's face twisted. I don't care who he is. Since he dared to kill a disciple of the Qing family, I'll cut him into pieces. At the same time, in an even larger palace on the upper level. This palace was filled with young people. They were all wearing blue robes with golden embroidery, indicating their status. They were all inner disciples of the Wu Xing Academy. The person sitting at the very top was actually wearing a purple robe. A core disciple. This young man was the most mysterious core disciple of the Wu Xing Academy. Although the core disciples of the Wu Xing Academy were called disciples, their strength and status were higher than many hall masters and elders. They were people who could cover the sky with one hand. They were enough to strike fear into the hearts of many families. Crown Prince, the results of this year's assessment are out. A young martial artist hurried into the palace and knelt before the man in the lead. This young martial artist was an inner disciple, but in front of the Crown Prince, he was as humble as a servant. The Crown Prince wasn't a name, but a title. In the Wu Xing Academy, there was only one person who could bear this title. He was the #1 genius of the Wu Xing Academy, Zhi Lingtian. The title Crown Prince represented Zhi Lingtian's current status in the Martial Victory Academy. He was second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. Other than the dean of the Martial Victory Academy, all the hall masters and elders were respectful to Zhi Lingtian. Therefore, he was like the Crown Prince of the Wu Xing Academy. Almost everyone thought that he would be the next principal. Crown Prince, please take a look. Rongtai, there's no need to trouble the Crown Prince with such a small matter. Go down and see if there are any talented disciples. Let them join the sacred hall. Before Zhi Lingtian could speak, a dark-skinned martial artist beside him said coldly. This dark-skinned martial artist was also wearing purple robes. He was a core disciple. Get lost. Don't disturb the Crown Prince. Young Master D, there are some unforeseen circumstances in the assessment. Let the Crown Prince take a look. Rongtai hesitated for a moment before speaking up. There are a few talented geniuses in this year's batch. Humph, I thought it was something special. Aren't there the so-called 4 geniuses of the extreme capital in this year's batch? These young fellows are quite famous. Just let them all join the sacred hall, the dark-skinned martial artist said. The dark-skinned martialist said. When he mentioned joining the sacred hall, his tone sounded as if it was a gift to him. Chapter 115. This year's newcomer isn't that simple. Have you heard of Chu Fengmian? Rongtai paused and said. Chu Fengmian? Family Chu's member? Young Master D frowned. Family Chu's member is Chu Lang, right? Where did this Chu Fengmian come from? Young Master D, you're wrong. Chu Fengmian isn't a member of family Chu. Although his surname is Chu, he's an outsider. Rongtai glanced at Zhi Lingtian, who was sitting calmly at the highest point. In this assessment, Chu Fengmian broke the Crown Prince's record. Hearing Rong Tai's words, Ji Lingtian, who had been calm all this time, finally moved his lips slightly. What's going on? Speak. Even though Ji Lingtian's tone was calm, everyone who heard it could feel a sense of superiority and majesty. They could only obey, not daring to refute. Here's the thing. Chu Fengmian's first assessment, the martial testing stone, broke the Crown Prince's record and reached LV9 of the body refining realm. I thought it was a big deal. The martial testing stone is just a formality. Everyone here should know that when the Crown Prince entered the academy, his strength had already reached the Divine Sea realm. He only showed his strength at LV8 of the body refining realm to hide it. Even if it were us, it would be easy for us to break the record. Young Master D said with dissatisfaction. How can you disturb the Crown Prince with such a trivial matter? He's just a newcomer. Let him join the Sacred Hall and work for the Crown Prince. Rong Tai said hurriedly. No, it's not that simple. The results of the second assessment just came out. Chu Fengmian's points also broke the Crown Prince's record. How much? The Crown Prince said calmly. 13,000 points. As soon as Rong Tai said that, everyone's expression changed. They couldn't help but look at him. What? 13,000 points. Rong Tai, are you sure? All the martial artists present had participated in the assessment before. They naturally knew how terrifying this number was. Ling Tian, the #1 genius of the Martial Victory Academy and the current Crown Prince of the Holy Hall, only had 5,100 points back then. Even if that hadn't been Ji Lingtian's full strength, he still wouldn't have been able to reach 13,000 points. Ji Lingtian's expression finally changed. This number was enough to make him take it seriously. I thought that this batch of newcomers didn't have any potential. I didn't expect such a person to appear. Ji Lingtian muttered to himself. Rong Tai, go and find Chu Fengmian after the assessment. Ask him to join our Saint Hall. We can't let other forces get such a genius. Ji Lingtian spoke. His tone was like a supreme decision, and there was no way to refute it. Yes. Rong Tai lowered his head and agreed. Then, his expression showed some difficulty. Crown Prince, what if that brat refuses to join? Rong Tai had also heard of Chu Fengmian's deeds. Chu Fengmian's arrogance didn't seem like a good person. Especially newcomers like him, who were all proud and arrogant when they joined the academy. It was easier said than done to get them to join. If he refuses to join, then we'll pull that brat over by force. How dare a newcomer refuse our Saint Hall's invitation? The dark-skinned martial artist looked at Ji Lingtian and said respectfully, Crown Prince, do you want me to go? If that brat dares to refuse, I'll beat him until he's convinced. The dark-skinned martial artist's tone was filled with the smell of blood. Obviously, this wasn't the first time he had done such a thing. The Saint Hall's supreme status in the Martial Victory Academy wasn't just for show. It was achieved through countless bloody battles. You don't have to worry about this. The Crown Prince glanced at the dark-skinned martial artist and said. He turned his head and looked at Rong Tai. I'll leave this matter to you. Our Saint Hall doesn't keep idle people. If you can't even deal with a newcomer, then don't stay in our Saint Hall. Get out of the academy yourself. I don't care what methods you use. Even if that brat doesn't join our Saint Hall, he can't join other forces. Ji Lingtian's tone was resolute and decisive. If the Saint Hall couldn't get such a genius, other forces wouldn't be able to either. If worse came to worst, they would destroy Chu Fengmian together. Yes. Rong Taiying nodded and strode outside. He was full of confidence. Yes, so what if Chu Fengmian was a genius with great aptitude? A genius was just a genius. Before his strength grew, there was no difference between a genius and an ordinary person. He was a Saint Hall martial artist and an inner disciple of the Martial Victory Academy. How could he not be able to deal with a newcomer? Especially since he was backed by the Saint Hall. He didn't believe that anyone would dare to refuse the St. Hall's invitation. Even if Chu Fengmian was arrogant, he wouldn't dare. Not only the St. Hall, but other forces also received news about Chu Fengmian, a person who had broken the record of the highest Lingtian realm, and a person who had broken the record twice. Such a genius had attracted the attention of countless forces in the Martial Victory Academy. Chu Fengmian naturally didn't know about the commotion outside. He was now sitting in the ark and flying in the direction of the heavenly path. Soon, a giant pagoda that was thousands of feet tall appeared in Chu Fengmian's sight. The heavenly path wasn't a path, but a pagoda. What powerful spiritual energy! This heavenly path is at least a heaven-grade spiritual weapon, or even a heaven-grade spiritual weapon. Chu Fengmian was shocked when he saw the heavenly path. As the disciple of the Master of Sword Principle in his previous life, he had seen all kinds of spiritual weapons. But even among the countless spiritual weapons he had seen in his previous life, there were only a few that could be compared to the heavenly path. An academy in such a remote country actually has such a spiritual weapon. Chu Fengmian couldn't help but exclaim, "Senior brother Chu, it seems that you also have such a shocked expression." Seeing the shock on Chu Fengmian's face, Chu Wuyin said with a smile, "But I'm afraid that any martial artist would have the same expression when they see the heavenly path for the first time. I had the same expression when I saw it for the first time." "Oh? So junior sister Chu has seen the heavenly path before?" Chu Fengmian was surprised when he heard Chu Wuyin's words. Chapter 116. Wuyin came to Wu Xing Academy once when she was young. Hearing Chu Fengmian's words, Chu Wuyin was a little embarrassed and quickly changed the topic. "Senior brother Chu, how much do you know about the heavenly path?" "A phantom will appear every time you enter the heavenly path. The phantom on the first level has the same strength as the cultivator, and the strength of the phantom will increase with each subsequent level," Chu Fengmian said calmly. These were all things that he had heard from Yu Feng. That was all Chu Fengmian knew about the heavenly path. However, Chu Fengmian knew that the heavenly path wasn't as simple as it looked. This spiritual artifact was at least a heaven-grade, upper-grade spiritual artifact. This ability was at most the tip of the iceberg. Even the experts of Wu Xing Academy wouldn't be able to discover the entirety of the heavenly path. After all, the grade of the heavenly path was too high. Even the higher-ups of Wu Xing Academy could only understand a little about it and couldn't fully control it. Otherwise, no one would be able to control the heavenly path. Not to mention being invincible in Wu Xing Academy, even in Wu Xing country and the 9 regions, they would be considered a terrifying expert. It seems like Chu Wuyin's identity is related to Wu Xing Academy even if he isn't a member of a big family. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Chu Fengmian had never been interested in Chu Wuyin's identity. After all, Chu Fengmian didn't care about Chu Wuyin's identity. Actually, other than being a training ground for cultivators, the heavenly path is also very important. It's the reward. Chu Wuyin looked at Chu Fengmian and said with a smile, "Rumor has it that the heavenly path was built by the founder of Wu Xing Academy. That founder placed countless treasures in the heavenly path as reward. Actually, you can get a reward every time you pass a level. The higher the level, the better the reward. Because of this, many inner disciples and even core disciples often come to challenge the heavenly path. However, this reward can only be obtained once. For example, after reaching the 10th level last time and obtaining the reward of the 10th level, one can only continue to obtain it when one attempts to reach an even higher level. Chu Wuyin, on the other hand, was extremely familiar with the heavenly path. She explained it in more detail than Yu Feng. Chu Fengmian listened quietly and also heard an important point. Reward. According to Chu Wuyin, many of the martial artists who came to challenge the heavenly path were here for the rewards. For the inner sect disciples of the Martial Victory Academy, even the core disciples, there were tempting rewards. For Chu Fengmian, it was definitely very attractive. What Chu Fengmian needed the most was resources. He needed endless resources to feed the primordial war dragon's shadow in his body. Chu Fengmian originally thought that it would be enough to display a portion of his strength, but now it seemed that he should indeed strive for a higher level. This way, the rewards he would receive would also be better. As for Chu Wuin's claim that the heavenly path was built by a sect's founder, Chu Fengmian snorted in disdain. If Wu Xing Academy had such a terrifying ancestor, how could they still be living in such a small place? It was most likely that Wu Xing Academy had come across the heavenly path by chance and made it up. While the two of them were conversing, the ark was already nearing the 1,000-foot-tall tower. Dong! The ark stopped in front of a cliff. Countless martial artists jumped down from the ark and arrived in front of the 1,000-foot-tall tower. Several elders were already waiting in front of the tower. At the same time, Chu Fengmian felt that there were dozens of auras hidden around the heavenly path. The weakest of these auras were at least in the Divine Sea realm, while the strongest ones were at the wind-controlling realm. It seems that there are many experts from Wu Xing Academy here. Chu Fengmian thought to himself. Previously, Yu Feng also said that the third test, the heavenly path, was not only to test the talent of martial artists. It was also for some hall masters and elders to come and recruit disciples. These hall masters and elders were hidden in the surroundings. If there were martial artists with talents that satisfied them, they would choose to recruit them as disciples. Oh? There's an aura whose strength I can't see through? Chu Fengmian observed the auras around him. Suddenly, his expression changed slightly. Among the countless auras, there was one aura whose strength Chu Fengmian couldn't see through. With Chu Fengmian's current spiritual consciousness, he could see through a martial artist at the peak of the wind-controlling realm. Only martial artists of the Divine Power realm could make Chu Fengmian unable to see through their strength. Divine Power realm. This was a realm completely different from the wind-controlling realm. The Divine Power realm meant that one had the strength of a god in a human body. Although it was a little exaggerated, the Divine Power realm and the wind-controlling realm were completely different realms. Not only was there a difference in strength, but it was as if they came from two different creatures. In the demonic beast clan, as long as they reached the Divine Power realm, they would be respectfully called demonic god. As for human martial artists, if they stepped into the Divine Power realm, they would also be given a title, saint. A saint would be treated with great respect in any country. Even the 7 great sects wouldn't underestimate a saint. Chu Fengmian didn't expect Wu Xing Academy to have such a foundation. They actually had a saint. Everyone might know that the third test is the heavenly path. An elder stood in front of the pagoda and explained loudly. Everyone, once you enter this pagoda, you will be able to step onto the heavenly path. Within it, you can display your strength to your heart's content because there will be many hall masters and elders coming to watch. The stronger your strength is, the higher the chance of you being selected. Once you are selected, you can choose to be an apprentice and become an inner disciple. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You must remember to display your strongest strength. Don't hide anything. Even if you aren't selected, you don't have to feel regretful. As outer disciples, you can still attend classes. As long as you are valued by other hall masters and elders, you can even be promoted to inner disciples. The order of entering the heavenly path will be based on the previous order. Yao Feng, come out. As the elder spoke, a skinny martial artist stood out from the crowd. This martial artist's strength was around the second level of the body refining realm. Logically speaking, he shouldn't have been able to pass the second test. However, because of the ancient dragon turtle, he killed more than 100 Green Alliance martial artists. Therefore, he was lucky enough to enter this round. Enter and display your strength to your heart's content. Yes. Chapter 117. In front of the giant pagoda, an image appeared. It was Yao Feng's performance in the heavenly path. The first level of the heavenly path was filled with warriors with the same strength as Yao Feng. Warriors who were able to enter Wusheng Academy all had some aptitude. Not long after, the first phantom was defeated by Yao Fong. Soon, he reached the second level. The illusory figure on the second level was actually stronger than the illusory figure on the first level. Yao Fong's battle became more difficult. After more than 10 minutes, he barely defeated the image on the second level. From the looks of it, the second level of illusory images was his limit. Countless elders who were watching from the side shook their heads. This level of strength was indeed disappointing. It wasn't much. As expected, after Yao Fong stepped into the third level, he was defeated by the image on the third level in 2 or 3 moves. In front of Yao Fong, a jade bottle slowly appeared. This should be the reward that Chu Wuyin mentioned. In this jade bottle, there was a blue elixir. On this elixir, 2 clear blue lines could be seen. Elixir markings. Profound grade elixir. Looking at the blue elixir in front of Yao Fong, the warriors on the scene were all excited. Yao Fong had only passed the second level of the heavenly path, but he actually received a profound grade elixir as his reward. Foundation elixir, a profound grade lower grade elixir. However, its effect is 100 times better than the energy gathering elixir. A small portion of it is equivalent to 100 energy gathering elixirs. Chu Fengmian had refined countless medicinal pellets in the past. Naturally, he was able to recognize what kind of medicinal pellet Yao Fong had obtained with a single glance. Go down and report to the outer sect. When the supervising elder saw Yao Fong appear, he calmly said these words. Yao Fong's performance was unable to move the hall masters and elders. Since he couldn't be selected, he could only go to the outer sect and become an outer sect disciple. Yes. Yao Fong held the foundation elixir and replied excitedly. He then walked towards the outer sect. To him, it was already a blessing to be able to enter the outer sect. Next, another warrior entered the heavenly path. Not long after, he was also thrown out. Just like Yao Fong, he also fell on the third level. Report to the outer sect. Next, the supervising elder said expressionlessly. Those who were at the bottom of the list did not have much of a chance. If they wanted to enter the eyes of the hall masters and elders, only the newcomers ranked in the top 10 would have a chance. As the test continued, almost everyone entered the 4th level. Most of the people failed at the 3rd level. Only a small portion of people were able to enter the 4th level. The Through Heavens Road test was originally a shortcut to reach the heavens in a single bound. For the majority of martial artists, they didn't have any expectations. Even if he failed, he wasn't too disappointed. To be able to enter the outer sect, he was already one of the best among this batch of newcomers. Next, Su Hu. Unknowingly, a long time had passed. There were only 5 people left in the examination. Among them, the warrior named Ran Qing, who was previously ranked 6th, had already made it to the 9th level. However, when he was on the 9th level, even if he made it to the 9th level, not a single hall master or elder wanted to take him as a disciple. Ran Qing could only leave silently. This test is really abnormal. Even Ran Qing couldn't get the favor of any hall master or elder. Some of the surrounding martial artists began to discuss among themselves. Ran Qing's strength was originally second only to the 4 geniuses. In the eyes of the crowd, he had a high chance of entering the inner sect. However, they didn't expect the result to be so cruel. With Su Hu's strength, he might be able to challenge the 10th level. Chu Fengmian looked at Su Hu and thought to himself. Su Hu's strength had been tempered quite a bit on the deserted island. The current him might really be able to challenge the 10th level. At least from Chu Fengmian's point of view, Su Hu was much stronger than Ran Qing. Su Hu entered the Through Heavens Road. He didn't use much strength in the first few levels and passed them in one go. Soon, in less than 5 minutes, he was already standing on the 9th level, the same as Ran Qing. It seemed that he was much more relaxed than Ran Qing. Su Hu's realm had reached the 5th level of the body refining realm. What he was facing was a shadow at the peak of the 5th level of the body refining realm. The shadow's strength was already infinitely close to the 6th level of the body refining realm. It could be said that Su Hu's battle was a battle that crossed a level. Bang! Su Hu's figure suddenly collided with the shadow and started a frenzied battle. The two figures were completely competing in strength. It was actually difficult to distinguish between them. Su Hu's strength is really shocking. During the arc test, his strength was far from being this strong. I didn't expect him to improve so quickly. A middle-aged man with muscles all over his body whispered to himself. He's a good seedling. Hall Master Gu is interested in Su Hu? An old man beside Hall Master Gu said with a smile. Su Hu's cultivation is pure martial arts. He's extremely compatible with the ancient martial arts hall. That's right. If Su Hu can pass this stage, I'll take him as my disciple. Hall Master Gu's tone was filled with anticipation. Bang! 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 On the Through Heaven Road, the battle between Su Hu and the Shadow was nearing its end. A powerful brute force suddenly erupted from Su Hu's body. He grabbed the Shadow and crazily smashed it to the ground. Boom! With a loud bang, the illusory figure was completely shattered. He passed the 9th level. So strong. For Su Hu to be able to enter the top 5 in this year's competition, there's no doubt about his strength. Countless warriors looked at the scene and muttered to themselves. They originally thought that Su Hu entering the top 5 was a fluke, but now it seemed that it was indeed based on his strength. However, for Su Hu, the 9th level was his limit. He stood up and walked towards the 10th level. The moment the shadow on the 10th level condensed, it fiercely punched at Su Hu. Bang! Su Hu's figure was instantly thrown out of the tower. At the same time, a medicinal pill slowly appeared in front of him. True martial pill. It's actually such a generous reward. The surrounding warriors looked at the pill in Su Hu's hand, and their faces were filled with jealousy. This true martial pill was a black-level upper-grade pill that could train a warrior's body. Chapter 118. With this true martial elixir, I will definitely challenge the 10th floor next time. Su Hu took the true martial elixir and stood up, intending to leave. A figure suddenly appeared in front of Su Hu. It was Hall Master Gu. Su Hu, are you willing to be my disciple and join the ancient martial arts hall? Hall Master Gu did not waste any time. This is the Hall Master of the Ancient Martial Arts Hall? Ancient Martial Arts Hall. This Su Hu is really lucky. He actually got the favor of a Hall Master. The Ancient Martial Arts Hall is one of the upper-middle-class halls in the Wuxing Academy. Su Hu was stunned when he saw Hall Master Gu. Then, he said excitedly, I am willing. Being able to be the disciple of a Hall Master and be promoted to the inner sect was definitely what all the newcomers wanted. Great. From now on, you are a disciple of the Ancient Martial Arts Hall. Be promoted to the inner sect. Pack up your things and leave with your master. Hall Master Gu laughed heartily. He was already satisfied to be able to receive such a satisfactory disciple. From today onwards, Su Hu will reach the sky in a single bound. That's right. Su Hu will be an inner sect disciple in the future. With the cultivation of the Ancient Martial Arts Hall Master, he will definitely improve rapidly. Countless martial artists said enviously. Su Hu was able to enter the Ancient Martial Arts Hall because of his outstanding performance. Reaching the 10th floor meant that he was able to fight those above his level. Next, Chu Wuyin. Without any hesitation, a white figure walked into the tower. Chu Wuyin was holding a guqin. As the strings were plucked, the phantom in front of him suddenly shattered. In front of Chu Wuyin, the first 10 levels were passed with ease. In terms of strength, the 4 geniuses of the extreme capital were indeed extraordinary. Chu Wuyin persisted until the 15th floor before he was defeated. A female elder walked out and accepted Chu Wuyin as her disciple. She was also promoted to an inner sect disciple. Ao Wuming and Lin Maju also entered and persisted until the 16th floor before they were defeated. The two of them were also taken away by the two hall masters as their disciples. Now, only Chu Fengmian was left among all the newcomers. It's finally the monster's turn. I wonder how many levels this freak will be able to reach. Back then, Ji Lingtian set a record by reaching the 45th level. I wonder what Chu Fengmian will achieve this time. Countless warriors looked at Chu Fengmian expectantly. The only person who could possibly surpass Ling Tian's record was Chu Fengmian. Since Chu Fengmian had already broken 2 records in Ling Tian, they wanted to see if Chu Fengmian could break the 3rd record. Hall Master Qin, Elder Mo, why are you here? Not far away, several old men were talking to each other. Their gazes were all fixed on Chu Fengmian, who was about to enter the through path. Ha ha! A monstrous genius has appeared in this batch. How could I not come and take a look? Hall Master Qin laughed heartily and said, I heard that this kid has broken 2 records of Ji Lingtian. Maybe he's another Ji Lingtian. I want to see what kind of monstrous genius this kid is. It's hard to say whether he's another Ji Lingtian. After all, although Ji Lingtian's performance in the entrance exam was amazing, his real strength was his performance after entering the academy. Another old man, Mo Zhonglai, said. However, this Chu Fengmian is indeed an extremely outstanding genius. Everyone has the desire to seek talent. This old man also wants to accept a disciple. Elder Mo actually wants to take him in as a disciple? Hall Master Qin said in surprise. This Elder Mo hadn't accepted a disciple for 10 years. Now, because of Chu Fengmian, he wanted to accept a disciple. Of course. But rumors are just rumors. Let's see how strong Chu Fengmian is. Elder Mo said in a low voice and stopped talking. He focused all his attention on Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had already entered the 1st level of the through path. An illusory figure that looked exactly like Chu Fengmian had already condensed. The strength of the 7th level of the body refining realm. It was exactly the same as Chu Fengmian's realm. Although the realm was the same, the strength was far different. Bang! Chu Fengmian didn't use any fancy moves. He just clenched his right fist and punched at the illusory figure. The illusory figure of the 1st level shattered with a loud bang. Chu Fengmian arrived at the 2nd level very easily. Bang! It was almost the same punch as before. The illusory figure of the 2nd level was also easily shattered by Chu Fengmian. Bang! 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 The 3rd level, the 4th level, the 5th level. The illusory figures that Chu Fengmian encountered along the way were all easily shattered by Chu Fengmian's punch. In the blink of an eye, Chu Fengmian arrived at the 15th level. The 15th level was already the limit that Chu Wuyin had reached. Bang! Chu Fengmian condensed another punch and suddenly smashed at the illusory figure of the 15th level. Under this punch, the illusory figure was also shattered abruptly. It didn't have any strength to resist at all. What kind of monster is this Chu Fengmian? Even the illusory figure of the 15th level couldn't take a punch from him? Could it be that his strength is really terrifying to such an extent? Originally, when Chu Fengmian achieved this scene on the first few levels, it wasn't enough to shock them. However, this was already the 15th level. As one of the 4 great geniuses, Chu Wuyin was defeated on this level. However, in front of Chu Fengmian, the illusory figure of the 15th level was like an ant. It was easily shattered by Chu Fengmian's punch. From beginning to end, Chu Fengmian had only relied on one punch to reach the 15th level. He had never used a second punch. This Chu Fengmian is indeed monstrous and extremely conceited. Elder Mo looked at Chu Fengmian and said in a low voice, In him, I see the shadow of the former Ji Lingtian. He's just as powerful, just as monstrous. He's even more arrogant and conceited than Ji Lingtian. Elder Mo could see that after Chu Fengmian threw the first punch, he stopped and didn't care about the result at all. This was a mentality that only people who were extremely confident in their own strength would have. In Chu Fengmian's opinion, the path to heaven was actually such an easy task. Everyone's hearts were filled with grief and indignation. In their opinion, this level was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. However, it was actually so easy in Chu Fengmian's hands. The 16th level. Every time Chu Fengmian went up a level, he would silently say it. Chapter 119. The 16th floor, the 17th floor, the 18th floor. Chu Fengmian didn't stop. He reached the 30th floor in a blink of an eye. The 30th floor. With Chu Fengmian's current strength, he's facing a shadow in the Divine Sea realm. Seeing Chu Fengmian reach the 30th floor, the warriors present felt numb. They wanted to see how many floors Chu Fengmian would be obstructed. In the first 30 floors, none of the shadows could cause any trouble to Chu Fengmian. They were all smashed by Chu Fengmian's punch. But now, the shadows on the 30th floor had reached the Divine Sea realm. This little guy's pace is slowing down. The 30th floor should be enough to force him to show his true strength. Elder Mo looked at Chu Fengmian and whispered to himself. Chu Fengmian defeated the previous 29 floors with one punch. This was not only because Chu Fengmian was showing his strength, but also because he was hiding something. Now, facing a shadow in the Divine Sea realm, Chu Fengmian should use his full strength. Little guy, it's been 10 years. No newcomer has reached the 30th floor for 10 years. This is a pleasant surprise for me. The shadow in front of Chu Fengmian suddenly spoke. This shadow looked like another Chu Fengmian, but his tone was completely different from Chu Fengmian's. It was an extremely old voice. Chu Fengmian looked at the shadow and asked with a change in his eyes. Are you the spirit of the heavenly road? You're not qualified to know my identity. If you want to know, go to a higher level, the shadow said coldly and arrogantly. But whether you can pass this level or not depends on your strength. Starting from this level, your strength has reached the Divine Sea realm. I won't go easy on you. Spirits of the 5 elements. The power of the 5 elements suddenly condensed on the shadow's body. Among them, the fire spirit was the strongest. It suddenly turned into a flaming tiger and pounced on Chu Fengmian. This shadow's strength had reached the Divine Sea realm. He could also use the spirit-controlling technique of the Divine Sea realm. You want to stop me with just these 5 elemental spirits? Chu Fengmian's lips curled into a mocking smile as he called out softly. Sword. Chu Fengmian summoned the black azure sword from his storage pouch and held it tightly in his hand. Facing the flaming tiger that was pouncing at him, he suddenly turned the tip of his sword. Break. Hiss. The seemingly ordinary sword strike contained a sharp sword intent. The flaming tiger was cut into 2 halves by the sword intent and shattered into pieces. The illusory figure standing in front of Chu Fengmian was also shattered by the sword. One sword. Chu Fengmian defeated the illusory figure on the 30th floor with just one sword strike. Too strong. This Chu Fengmian is too strong. Killing the shadow of a Spirit Sea Realm warrior with one sword strike. Could it be that Chu Fengmian has the ability to kill a Spirit Sea Realm warrior with one sword strike? It's extremely difficult for a body-refining realm warrior to defeat a Spirit Sea Realm warrior. Is it really possible for a body-refining realm warrior to kill a Spirit Sea Realm warrior with one sword strike? The crowd below was in an uproar. Many warriors had forgotten that they were not allowed to talk loudly and were shouting in shock. But now, the supervising elder in charge of maintaining order was also shocked. He was not in the mood to maintain order. Since when did a Spirit Sea Realm warrior become so weak that he could be killed by Chu Fengmian's sword strike? It should be noted that the illusory figure on the heaven-reaching road was no different from a real warrior in the same realm. The display of the 5 elemental spirits just now was even stronger than that of many warriors who had just entered the Spirit Sea Realm. Elder Mo, you should be tempted by this kind of sword technique. Hall Master Qin looked at Elder Mo and said with a smile. It was worth watching this time. Our Wuxing Academy has given birth to another peerless genius. At least I can conclude that this Chu Fengmian is not inferior to the former Ji Lingtian. This sword strike alone was enough to shock everyone present. This was only a small part of Chu Fengmian's strength. At the very least, they believed that Chu Fengmian had even more terrifying trump cards hidden in his body. Another Ji Lingtian had appeared. This was the only thought in the minds of all the warriors, elders, and hall masters present. 15 years ago, a Ji Lingtian had appeared and completely reshuffled the Wuxing Academy. No one knew what kind of waves this Chu Fengmian would cause this time. Another Ji Lingtian? Countless people's conversations were heard by Chu Fengmian. A trace of disdain flashed in Chu Fengmian's eyes. What was Ji Lingtian? He, Chu Fengmian, was once the #1 swordsman. Did he need to be compared with a little guy? Sooner or later, Ji Lingtian would be trampled under Chu Fengmian's feet. In the future, when the name of the #1 swordsman was mentioned, it would only be Chu Fengmian, not Ji Lingtian. Hiss! Chu Fengmian held the dark blue sword and killed on the path to heaven again. With Chu Fengmian's sword intent, the illusory shadow at the first LV of the Spirit Sea realm was easily killed. Unknowingly, Chu Fengmian had arrived at the 45th floor. The 45th floor was the record set by Ji Lingtian, and it was also the place where Ji Lingtian stopped. The shadow that Chu Fengmian faced had also reached the second level of the Divine Sea realm. Compared with Chu Fengmian, it was 4 levels higher. Not to mention that there was a gap of 1 level between them. Boom! As soon as the shadow of the 45th floor appeared, it was suddenly enveloped by a mass of wind spirit. It was as if it was the incarnation of the wind spirit. It rushed toward Chu Fengmian abruptly. This shadow was not in existence without consciousness. It had combat experience and knew the principle of striking first to gain the upper hand. As soon as Chu Fengmian stepped into the 45th floor, it suddenly attacked and was ready to catch Chu Fengmian off guard. Humph, a sneak attack? Chu Fengmian's eyes froze and his sword moved. A streak of sword energy slashed out along with the sword. The sword aura was astonishingly fast. Without any sound, it slashed towards the illusory figure. As the sword energy flashed, the shadow's body was cut in half. Now it did not have much strength left. Chu Fengmian moved his feet and the sword flashed. The sword accurately pierced into the shadow's chest. This shadow was killed by Chu Fengmian's sword again. Chapter 120. Dong, dong, dong. 3 loud chimes sounded from the top of the tower. The 3 chimes spread throughout the entire Wuxing Academy. Everyone, regardless of whether they were from the upper, middle, or lower levels, could hear the chimes clearly. Are these the chimes of the heavenly path? What's going on? Why are the bells ringing on the heavenly path? The last time the bells were rung on the heavenly path was 15 years ago when Crown Prince Ji Lingtian participated in the entrance examination. What's going on this time? Could it be that someone from this batch of newcomers has surpassed Ji Lingtian? In the entire Wuxing Academy, almost everyone stopped what they were doing and looked in the direction of the gigantic tower. At the same time, countless figures abruptly flew towards the 1,000-feet-tall tower, wanting to see what was going on. Originally, there were less than 100 elders and hall masters who came to watch. Now that the bell had rung, nearly 300 elders and hall masters had gathered around the 10,000-feet-tall tower. Almost all of the elders and hall masters of the Wuxing Academy had come. Even those who usually didn't come to watch were all present. The hall master of the battle hall, the hall master of the martial hall, and the hall master of the battle hall. Some cultivators exclaimed when they saw the figures arriving one after another. Among the countless halls of the Wuxing Academy, there were 3 halls that had always been high and mighty. No other hall had ever challenged their position. They were the Battle Hall, Martial Hall, and Battle Hall. These 3 halls had existed since the establishment of the Wuxing Academy. After thousands of years, they had become giants. The hall masters of these 3 halls were usually elusive, but now they had all appeared at the same time. Elder Mo, are you still not going to accept this kid as your disciple? Hall Master Qin looked at Elder Mo beside him and said with a smile. I didn't expect that this kid would actually provoke the hall masters of the 3 great halls. Accept a disciple? Even if I want to accept a disciple now, I'm afraid it won't be my turn. Elder Mo shook his head helplessly when he saw more and more people coming. Although he wanted to take in Chu Fengmian as a disciple, countless elders of Wuxing Academy had already arrived. Even the 3 hall leaders were present. Even if he wanted to recruit a disciple, he would not stand a chance against the 3 hall leaders. Both of you are here. This is really rare. The hall master of the martial hall looked at the hall masters of the battle hall and the battle hall. 2 hall masters, what brings you here today? You don't have to play dumb here. Isn't everyone here for the same purpose? The hall master of the battle hall said coldly. The last time the bell rang on the Heavenspan path, there was a Ji Lingtian. Now that it's ringing again, I'm sure everyone wants to see who it is. This brat doesn't seem to be a disciple of a big clan. He's just an ordinary disciple, yet he has such terrifying talent. The hall master of the battle hall also spoke. He has already broken the record of Lingtian. I wonder what heights he will reach in the future. The 3 of them called out to each other and then stopped talking. They all continued to watch Chu Fengmian's performance on the Heavenspan path. After defeating the shadow on the 45th floor, Chu Fengmian displayed his might again. 46th floor, 47th floor, 48th floor. In a few minutes, Chu Fengmian had already stepped on the 50th floor. This time, Chu Fengmian had to face a LV3 Divine Sea Realm warrior, who was 5 levels higher than Chu Fengmian. 50th floor. Since the inception of Wuxing Academy, no newcomer has ever reached this number. To be able to reach the 50th floor of the heavenly path, even if you're an inner disciple, you can be considered a top expert in the inner sect. Chu Fengmian is just a newcomer who hasn't even been trained in the academy. How can he be so terrifying? The spectators were not the only ones who were shocked. The hearts of many hall masters and elders were also filled with shock. The Martial Victory Academy had actually produced such a terrifying genius this year. He was even more terrifying than the Ji Lingtian of the past. 50th floor. Chu Fengmian should have reached his limit. Looking at Chu Fengmian's figure, many people could no longer guess Chu Fengmian's limit. However, only some core disciples had the chance to pass the 50th floor. In many people's eyes, the 50th floor was Chu Fengmian's limit. I will take this man as my disciple. I will take him as my disciple. An elder yelled. Chu Fengmian's talent made him very eager to take Chu Fengmian as his disciple. You think you can take him as your disciple? Our Tianjua Hall will also take such a genius. Tianjua Hall is nothing. This kid's swordsmanship is so amazing. Of course, our 9-sword hall will take him. Some hall masters and elders had already started to quarrel. They were all waiting. After Chu Fengmian failed, they would run up to Chu Fengmian and ask him to be their disciple. 50th floor. It seems that without using the Battle Dragon spell, this is my limit. Chu Fengmian looked at the shadow in front of him and thought to himself. He had reached here by relying on his own strength, swordsmanship, and body movement. He had not activated the bloodline of the ancient battle dragon. Now, if he wanted to take another step forward, he could no longer hide the battle dragon spell. Fight, Chu Fengmian said in his heart. The ancient battle dragon bloodline in his body was already boiling. From Chu Fengmian's body, a huge amount of spiritual power was crazily accumulating and began to erupt. Seeing the spiritual power erupting from Chu Fengmian's body, countless elders were stunned. Chu Fengmian still has a trump card. Is this kid a monster? Look at him. Is he going to break through to a higher level? Some elders said in a daze. Chu Fengmian did not look timid at all. The result of 50th floor was definitely an astronomical figure for an ordinary warrior. However, Chu Fengmian was still not satisfied. How could such a result be worthy of Chu Fengmian? He, Chu Fengmian, was going to become the emperor of the 9 regions in the future. He was going to challenge the 7 major sects in the future. 50th floor was too little for Chu Fengmian. Dragon fighting in the wild. Chu Fengmian's figure abruptly rushed towards that illusory figure. In his hand, a dragon pattern also condensed on the blade of the dark green sword. Now, Chu Fengmian's ancient battle dragon bloodline was enough to affect his swordsmanship. The dragon power of the ancient battle dragon merged with Chu Fengmian's sword intent. Chapter 121. Dragon's Roar. This is a pure dragon's roar. This brat's swordsmanship is actually able to trigger a dragon's roar. A dragon's roar from the sword. This brat actually has a dragon's might. Where did he come from? The Hall Master of Battle Hall looked at Chu Fengmian and muttered to himself. Dragon's might. Dragons were the symbol of nobility in the world. They represented supreme power. In the 9 regions, geniuses were known as dragons among men. And now, Chu Fengmian actually triggered a dragon's roar the moment he drew his sword. This was simply something that had never happened in the Martial Victory Academy. This brat will definitely be the true hope of our Martial Victory Academy in the future. Even Ling Tian is nothing compared to him. The Hall Master of Battle Hall thought firmly. This brat must be pulled into our battle hall. This way, the next dean will most likely be someone from our battle hall. The Hall Master of Battle Hall was not the only one who had such thoughts. The Hall Master of Martial Hall and Hall Master of Battle Hall were also thinking the same thing. They wanted to pull Chu Fengmian into their academy at all costs. Roar. With a dragon's roar, Chu Fengmian's sword moved. His sword aura was like a real dragon. It rushed towards the illusory figure and opened its bloody mouth to devour it. That illusory figure was almost unable to react before it was devoured by the sword aura dragon. Boom! The illusory figure on the 50th floor was also destroyed by Chu Fengmian. So terrifying. Is this Chu Fengmian's true strength? So Chu Fengmian was still hiding his strength? The illusory figure of the 3rd level Divine Sea Realm was easily killed by Chu Fengmian. The current Chu Fengmian looked completely different from before. This was Chu Fengmian's true strength. Everything before was just Chu Fengmian's concealment. 51st floor. After defeating the illusory figure, Chu Fengmian once again advanced towards the 51st floor. Now that the 3 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence had been activated in Chu Fengmian's body, he wanted to see. How far could he go with these 3 drops of ancient war dragon's blood essence? The illusory figure on the 51st floor looked at Chu Fengmian and whispered. I'm really surprised that you can reach this place. Enough nonsense. Let's fight. Chu Fengmian looked at the shadow and didn't say anything. The sword in his hand moved again. A sharp killing intent surrounded the tip of the sword. This killing intent was so dense that it made people feel as if they were about to be destroyed. Boom! When the sword passed, people died. The illusory figure on the 51st floor was still killed by Chu Fengmian's sword. Chu Fengmian killed all the phantoms on the 52nd and 53rd floors. Currently, he had already reached the 60th floor. But this time, what Chu Fengmian had to face was a shadow at the 4th level of the Spirit Sea Realm. The entire place was dead silent. No one dared to guess the result of Chu Fengmian's battle because they had been wrong countless times. Chu Fengmian was simply not a person who could play cards according to common sense. Leaping 6 levels to fight was simply an impossible thing. However, anything was possible when it came to Chu Fengmian. 5 elements spirit transformation. The projection of the 60th level roared furiously in front of Chu Fengmian. 5 element spirits were formed at the same time. The power of a shadow at the 4th level of the Spirit Sea Realm was several times more terrifying than that of a shadow at the 3rd level of the Spirit Sea Realm. These 5 elements spirits all had the power of the 4th level of the spirit sea realm. It was almost the same as Chu Fengmian facing the siege of 5 warriors at the 4th level of the spirit sea realm at the same time. Boom! He felt a huge pressure from Chu Fengmian. It was as if this pressure was going to crush him. Little guy, give up. You're already very good to have reached this step. The illusionary figure shook his head and said. It was already surprising that there was a genius like Chu Fengmian in this remote country. But reaching the 60th floor was already the limit. It was impossible for him to go further. Seeing that Chu Fengmian was suppressed, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. Chu Fengmian would be defeated one day. Chu Fengmian is finally going to be defeated. The 60th floor. I'm afraid that our Martial Victory Academy won't be able to break this record in 100 years. Although Chu Fengmian was going to be defeated, in everyone's eyes, Chu Fengmian's defeat was already something they could only look up to. Challenging the 60th floor and being defeated. Not to mention that Chu Fengmian was just a newcomer, even some of the inner disciples or core disciples of the Martial Victory Academy might not be able to reach this height. This kind of achievement was already envied by countless warriors. A middle-aged man slowly walked out from the crowd and stopped in front of the giant tower. He looked at Chu Fengmian and shouted, "Brother Chu Fengmian, let's go! Chu Fengmian, whether you win or lose this battle, our Martial Hall welcomes you at any time." The Hall Master of Martial Hall shouted. This sentence was like a clap of thunder that exploded in everyone's heart. Everyone's eyes fell on the Hall Master of Martial Hall. Hall Master of Martial Hall Wu Tsangqiong. Martial Hall. It was one of the 3 great halls of the Martial Victory Academy and one of the strongest factions of the Martial Victory Academy. It was the place that countless disciples of the Martial Victory Academy dreamed of joining. Now, the Hall Master of Martial Hall, Wu Tsangqiong, had actually taken the initiative to extend an olive branch to Chu Fengmian. Apart from shock, many people's eyes were also filled with jealousy. Without any hesitation, the Martial Hall could be said to be the place that all the disciples of the Martial Victory Academy dreamed of entering. The Martial Hall did not recruit disciples on a normal day. Only disciples with extremely high aptitude who took the initiative to participate in the Martial Hall's assessment could enter. Not long ago, the Hall Master of Martial Hall, Wu Tsangqiong, had actually taken the initiative to extend an olive branch to this newcomer. Although Chu Fengmian had offended the family Chu and the Qing family, which were hot potatoes, if Chu Fengmian really joined the Martial Hall, the family Chu and the Qing family would definitely seek revenge. The Chu clan and the Qing clan wouldn't dare to take revenge on Chu Fengmian. Even these 2 great clans wouldn't dare to confront the Martial Arts Hall directly. That was because the Martial Arts Hall represented the true ancient and powerful strength of the Martial Victory Institute. It represented the foundation and prosperity of the Martial Victory Academy. Being able to join the Martial Hall would truly be a meteoric rise for Chu Fengmian. Before the crowd could recover from their shock, 2 more middle-aged men walked out from the crowd. Chapter 122. The Hall Master of the Battle Hall Zhan Fengyun. The Hall Master of the Battle Hall Zhan Tianwei. Among the crowd, almost everyone stared blankly at the 2 middle-aged men who had walked out. Wu Tsangqiong, the Hall Master of the Martial Hall, was not the only one who came. The other 2 hall masters of the other 2 halls had also appeared. "Brother Wu, Chu Fengmian hasn't come out yet. Isn't it a little too fast for you to make a decision?" Zhan Fengyun teased Wu Tsangqiong. He turned his head and shouted at Chu Fengmian, who was still on the path to heaven. "Chu Fengmian, our battle hall also welcomes you to join us." Zhan Fengyun had just finished speaking when Do Tianwei shouted, "Chu Fengmian, our battle hall is also willing to invite you to join us. Our battle hall is willing to provide you with a spot to become a core disciple in the future." Crazy! Seeing that the 3 hall masters had taken the initiative to invite a newcomer, the martial artists' eyes almost fell out of their sockets. Since when did these three arrogant hall masters take the initiative to invite a new martial artist? Especially when they promised Chu Fengmian some benefit. A spot to become a core disciple. In the Wu Shing Academy, the inner disciples were not the highest. There was another kind of existence above the inner disciples, and that was the core disciples. The core disciples were the most important people to nurture in the Wu Shing Academy. In the Wu Shing Academy, the core disciples were almost all nurtured as the next dean. Even if the core disciples could not become the next dean, they would at least become elders in the future. There were only a dozen core disciples in the entire Wu Shing Academy. Only the strongest forces in the Wu Shing Academy would have a spot to become a core disciple every 10 years. Dou Tianwei's promise to Chu Fengmian meant that he was betting the prosperity of the battle hall for the next 10 years on Chu Fengmian. Countless jealous, shocked, surprised, and envious gazes looked at Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian was the only one in the academy who could receive such an honor. Many elders and hall masters were originally interested in Chu Fengmian, but when they heard the three hall masters' words, they understood. Chu Fengmian would definitely not be theirs. However, none of them chose to leave because they wanted to see how far Chu Fengmian could go. Was the 60th floor Chu Fengmian's limit? Give up. On the heavenly path, the shadow looked at Chu Fengmian and said coldly, "To be able to reach this step is already an unparalleled honor for you. Give up?" Chu Fengmian's eyes turned cold. In his previous life, he didn't even have the strength to make a choice. In this life, how could he give up? Did you really think that your oppressive might would be able to suppress this Chu? A cold smile appeared on Chu Fengmian's face. Endless battle intent burst out from his eyes. Invincible battle dragon. The bloodline of the ancient war dragon boiled crazily in Chu Fengmian's body, compressing the power within. On Chu Fengmian's body, waves of spiritual energy were still rising crazily. As a result, his body, which was originally suppressed, actually began to move again. The ancient war dragons would never be defeated. If they were defeated, they would rather die. Break for me. Chu Fengmian clenched his teeth and roared, and a burst of crazy spiritual power emerged on Chu Fengmian's sword. The sword flashed, and the oppressive might was forcibly torn open, allowing Chu Fengmian's suppressed body to immediately find a chance to escape. Die. Chu Fengmian moved his feet and suddenly rushed up to the shadow. The shadow did not expect Chu Fengmian to burst out such a terrifying power in an instant, and retreated in a panic. A beam of sword light had already pierced through his body. The shadow was shattered. The 60th floor still could not stop Chu Fengmian. This kid is terrifying. Wu Tsangqiong looked at Chu Fengmian breaking through the 60th floor, and his expression was almost blank. Since when did a newcomer have such terrifying strength? Chu Fengmian was not only terrifying in his strength, but also in his battle intent. This kind of undefeated battle intent was the most terrifying thing about Chu Fengmian. The 61st floor, the 62nd floor, in 2 hours, Chu Fengmian had already reached the 70th floor. During this period, Chu Fengmian almost did not have any rest, and only swallowed some elixirs to forcefully endure it. Could it be that this kid's spiritual energy is limitless? He can recover his spiritual power just by swallowing some elixirs without any rest. Countless people were shocked when they saw Chu Fengmian. Chu Fengmian had the divine pulse, and his spiritual power was almost infinite, so he did not need to replenish any spiritual power at all. Those elixirs that Chu Fengmian swallowed were specially made to deceive others. Otherwise, Chu Fengmian would not even need to swallow those elixirs. The 70th floor is my current limit. Chu Fengmian reached the 70th floor, and he understood in his heart. This was already his limit. Now, Chu Fengmian had squeezed 3 drops of the ancient war dragon's blood essence to the limit, and only then did he pass the 69th floor. The 70th floor was completely different from the 69th floor, and unless Chu Fengmian exposed all his trump cards, he would not be able to pass it. This number is already enough to shock the Wuxing Academy. Chu Fengmian revealed a smile at the corner of his mouth. What he did not know was that when Chu Fengmian was breaking through the heavenly path, countless people were already shocked outside. Bang! After reaching the 70th floor, Chu Fengmian was defeated in almost an instant, and he was sent flying out of the 10,000 feet tall tower. Seeing that Chu Fengmian was defeated, everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief. If Chu Fengmian had not been defeated, they might really think that Chu Fengmian might have passed the heavenly path. The heavenly path had existed since the establishment of the Wuxing Academy. For thousands of years, countless geniuses and experts had passed all 100 floors, but none of them had really passed all 100 floors. Because of this, there were countless rumors that said that if one passed the heavenly path, he would regret it and obtain countless benefits. Although Chu Fengmian had been defeated, he was able to reach the 70th floor as a newcomer. In the future, when Chu Fengmian matured in the Wuxing Academy, he might really become the most promising person to pass the heavenly path. The moment Chu Fengmian was sent flying, a jade bottle fell into Chu Fengmian's hand. Through the jade bottle, Chu Fengmian could feel an extremely strong medicinal power. A heaven-grade lower-grade elixir. Seeing the mist-like elixir, Chu Fengmian's face showed some joy. Chapter 123. A heaven-grade elixir. Everyone looked at the jade bottle in Chu Fengmian's hand with unconcealable greed in their eyes. Not only some of the disciples, but many hall masters and elders also had greed in their eyes. Chu Fengmian was able to reach the 70th floor in one go. Everyone knew that the reward from the heavenly path would not be small. But when they saw the heaven-grade elixir, many of them went crazy. A heaven-grade elixir was extremely rare even in the 9 prefectures. It had not appeared in the victorious martial country for thousands of years. The heaven-grade elixir in Chu Fengmian's hand was probably the only one in the victorious martial country for thousands of years. Giving a heaven-grade elixir to a little guy like you is a waste of God's gift. Give it to me. The moment Chu Fengmian left the giant tower, an arrogant voice descended from the sky. A huge arm fell from the sky and grabbed the jade bottle in Chu Fengmian's hand. It was actually trying to snatch the heaven-grade elixir from Chu Fengmian. Sneak attack. Chu Fengmian did not expect that during the assessment, in front of so many elders and hall masters of the victorious martial academy, someone would sneak attack him. Someone actually dared to sneak attack him. Phantom. In an instant, Chu Fengmian's figure moved. Only an afterimage was left behind on the spot. His figure had already moved to the side and hurriedly dodged. Boom! What the giant palm grabbed was only an illusory figure. This sudden sneak attack was barely dodged by Chu Fengmian using the phantom body technique. But Chu Fengmian's heart still had lingering fear. Fortunately, Chu Fengmian's reaction was extremely fast. In addition, Chu Fengmian was different from ordinary warriors. He had the divine pulse, and his spiritual energy was almost endless. Even after a battle, he could react at any time. If it were other warriors, they would have been extremely weak after coming out of the heavenly path. It was impossible for them to have Chu Fengmian's spiritual energy to resist. This sneak attack was extremely terrifying. No warrior would have thought that someone would dare to sneak attack in front of so many hall masters and elders of the victorious martial academy. If it weren't for Chu Fengmian's quick reaction, not only would the celestial elixir in his hand have been snatched away, but this palm strike would also be enough to kill Chu Fengmian. The speed and power of this palm was extremely strong. It was probably enough to contend against the ancient dragon turtle. It was an attack from a peak wind-resisting realm ancient martial art practitioner. Who is it? How dare you launch a sneak attack during the assessment? Get out here! Wu Tsangqiong, Zhan Fengyun, and Dou Tianwei roared at the same time. 3 streams of terrifying spiritual qi burst out crazily. Launching a sneak attack during Wuxing Academy's assessment, especially in front of the 3 of them, was simply a slap to their faces. Chu Fengmian was a peerless genius, and they all wanted to rope him in. They never thought that there would be someone who wanted to kill Chu Fengmian. If it hadn't been for Chu Fengmian's quick reaction, he would have been killed by that palm. Ha ha ha, Hall Masters, there's no need to be angry. This sovereign was just joking with this little fellow. A surge of spiritual energy erupted. With a loud boom, the sky shattered and a figure walked out from the sky. The figure wasn't tall, but anyone who saw it felt as if they were looking at a high and mighty ruler. It had an innate terrifying aura. Crown Prince Ji Lingtian. Countless martial art practitioners cried out in alarm when they saw the figure. The person who launched the sneak attack was none other than the #1 genius of Wuxing Academy, the Crown Prince Ji Lingtian. It's really him. Chu Fengmian secretly circulated all the spiritual energy in his body and the power of the 5 drops of ancient battle dragon blood essence. Ling Tian's strength was at the peak of the wind-controlling realm. If Chu Fengmian had not displayed the phantom body technique, the palm just now would have been enough to kill Chu Fengmian. However, such a body technique could only be used once in front of Ji Lingtian. The second time, Ji Lingtian had learned his lesson. Even if Chu Fengmian used the phantom body technique, it would be useless. Chu Fengmian knew that Ji Lingtian wouldn't let him break his record so easily. However, Chu Fengmian didn't expect Ji Lingtian to be so arrogant. He actually dared to launch a sneak attack during the assessment, especially in front of the 3 hall masters. Ji Lingtian, you must give us an explanation today. Do you think that the Saint Hall is invincible in Wuxing Academy? Wu Sangqiong looked at Ji Lingtian and said angrily. He was also a high and mighty existence in Wuxing Academy. Now that Ji Lingtian dared to challenge his prestige, he was furious. That's right, Ji Lingtian. Although you are a core disciple and highly regarded by the dean, you have crossed the line today. Zhang Fengyun also said angrily. Although Ji Lingtian was strong, the 3 hall masters weren't afraid of him. Ji Lingtian, if you don't give us an explanation today, don't think that you can leave safely. Dou Tianwei shouted angrily. Today, Ji Lingtian dared to launch a sneak attack during the assessment, which was a slap to everyone's face. The elders and hall masters didn't dare to go against Ji Lingtian. However, the 3 hall masters were different. Give you an explanation? No one dares to ask me for an explanation when I do something. Ji Lingtian's face was filled with arrogance as he spoke. 3 hall masters, I know that the 3 of you are at the peak of the Imperial Wind Realm. However, the 3 of you are not enough to stop me. Ji Lingtian laughed. Everyone present was stunned by Ji Lingtian's arrogance. Ji Lingtian dared to say such arrogant words in front of the 3 hall masters. It was as if he didn't put the 3 hall masters in his eyes. Arrogant boy. Do you think that you are a saint? Do you think that you can fight against the 3 of us alone? The 3 hall masters roared at the same time. 3 powerful spiritual energies rushed towards Ji Lingtian at the same time. Martial arts under the heavens. Undefeatable. Martial arts under the heavens. 3 powerful spiritual energies rushed towards Ji Lingtian at the same time. The 3 hall masters attacked at the same time. The power that erupted was terrifying to the extreme. A bunch of old men, do you really think that you can stop me? Infinite Great Tao, break for me. Ji Lingtian laughed maniacally as he also unleashed a wave of spiritual energy. This wave of spiritual energy was actually no weaker than the combined power of the 3 hall masters. The Crown Prince's strength has reached such a level. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.